Coming to you from Blue Crew Studio in Temecula, California, it's the Whiskey Throttle Show, taking you inside the lives and careers of the legends and leaders of action sports. Today's guest is brought to you by Yamaha. Yamaha is the industry leader in 2- and 4-wheel fun and performance. Motocross, off-road, adventure, side-by-side, Yamaha sets the standard. Yamaha revs your heart. The Whiskey Throttle Show is presented by Motorsport.com. It doesn't matter if you like to pull a throttle cable on a dirt bike, street bike, side-by-side. Motorsport.com is putting riders first with parts, gear, and accessories, including some of our partners like Troy Lee Designs, Dunlop, Pro Circuit, and more. They offer first returns free on apparel so you can buy with confidence. And Motorsport.com offers fast, free shipping on all orders over $79. Make your next ride your best ride. Visit Motorsport.com. Troy Lee made a name for himself as the most elite helmet painter in all forms of motorsport racing. His ability to make a stationary object look fast is something rare. That creativity gave way to motocross and mountain bike gear, helmets, and an arsenal of protective equipment aimed at keeping racers on the track and out of a doctor's office. The 2025 TLD line is out, and it's as fast as ever. Troy Lee Designs, blending speed and style. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Whiskey Throttle Show here in Blue Crew Studios. We have got a special guest today, Mike Webb. If you're not familiar with the name, former Suzuki team manager, longtime racer, and guy's been in the industry for a long time, man. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, Ted.
I remember your name, you and your brother from so far. I mean, from when I got into the sport and started paying attention, I always just picture him with a magazine, writing and doing tests and stories. Wolfman, it's so just stuck in my brain from so many years back. Then yourself, like you were kind of the off-road guy is what I remember you when I came in, and boy, you went on to do some cool things. And I'm excited to get into your story here. We start everything with our motorsport.com whole shot segment. So anything you guys need, man, get up to motorsport.com. They've got a sweepstakes right now. They're giving away a free bike and free prizes all month. So go check out what they've got going on, and you can get great deals over there, free shipping on any orders over like $60 or $70. It's a great deal. Save time, save money. Go over to motorsport.com. So tell me what you've been up to, man. I feel like I haven't heard from you a whole lot in the last maybe, 6-7 years.
Yeah, that's about right. Well, pretty much retired. I got younger sons that keep me really busy with sports. My oldest is he wants to be a fireman, so he's really in the cadet program, the Explorers. So he's into that. But they're also into riding, but they're into surfing, and they're into football and lacrosse. So
that's awesome.
That keeps me real busy. I still ride every week, off-road. I still love it. And then I work for Ricky Johnson with his tour company, the Ricky Johnson Adventures. So, which is awesome, being able to work with RJ and still being able to, make a little bit of side money riding motorcycles.
Of course.
Yeah.
He's got a pretty cool deal going on there, the package with he and Wardy and going to the races and then doing his tours. Like, if you've never hung out with RJ, man, there's not a better human being out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Rick did is he looked at it, we kind of look at the adventure bike segment or dual sport, but it's the flavor of the month now. Everybody's doing a tour or a ride or whatever it is. So it's like, how do you set yourself apart? And Rick looked at it, and he's like, okay, let me tie in the Rick Johnson experience and the Jeff Wards and the Ronnie Lacheens and the David Baileys. Let's bring it all together and tie it into a ride. And that's what he's done. We did Anaheim 1 and Anaheim 2 this year. It was supposed to be a ride, an adventure ride too, but Rick just had his knee replaced, so he couldn't ride. The doctors wouldn't release him. But we had David and Wardy, and it was just so cool because I think there was 20 guys on each one, and we go to Blackmore Ranch. We have a sit-down dinner and just an open question with all the guys that age, that demographic. That Ricky and Wardy were their Jet Lawrence.
Yeah,
and they're right there, and you can say anything you want, and it's real not politically correct all the time.
Yeah.
Rick just lets it fly, which is so cool.
Yeah,
and then we get to go to the race the next day. They all go to the race. We get a track walk. We get a pit tour, great seats, and it's just the guys we take afterwards, they are so pumped. So I think he's really onto something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know who you compare it to today. It's like if you had Carmichael and Stewart and you went to the races with them and watched the races.
And hung out, yeah.
Wardy and RJ, and you're watching the race with them and listening to them, banter about what's going on. You just have to pinch yourself.
And it's cool. Like with Wardy, I've known Jeff for years, but I've not really known him. And when I was hearing his stories, I'm like a fan too. I'm just sitting there going, whoa, I didn't know this and that, and funny stories with Ronnie. But the thing that blew me away most about Jeff was his IndyCar stuff.
Oh, I know.
And he goes into detail of crashing at 238 miles an hour and a wheel going by his head. And I'm just like, man, that's unbelievable. Yeah. The talent between motocross, the supermoto, and the car racing, that guy is unbelievable. And he's still to this day. Yeah. Unbelievable.
He was on the show. We had to break it into two parts. Like how he had his motocross career and then everything after. He did the Ram, the bicycle racing that he does, the Indy racing, the truck racing. He is the best racer I've ever met.
I think so too. Yeah, pure racer.
And, we were talking about how impressive Rodney is. Like, you can think about, he won an IndyCar race.
I know.
And he almost won the Indy 500 a couple times.
Almost won it, yeah. And
I don't know if people really grasp that, how gnarly he was. Yeah. The only guy to win every single championship in motocross and supercross at that time.
That's what blew me away is the fact that he did win an Indy race. And you think of the level of that. Supercross is cool. Motocross is cool. We're this big. Yeah. Indy, it's, oh my God. So.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, what a cool deal that you're involved with there. I'm always pulling for him, and anything we can do to help those guys out, man, we will. From a media side, Right. Tell me about, we'll get into your story here, and you've got a pretty long history at Suzuki. And I got to ask what your take is on the company. Now that you're retired, obviously I don't want to make anyone angry, but you can kind of speak freely about that. Them as a brand, man, it is super perplexing to me because I have a soft spot for Suzuki in my heart as an amateur kid. Pat Alexander gave me my first ride. I don't know, I have a soft spot for him, the Yellow Magic jackets, and I don't know, there was something cool about it in that
the Primal team.
Yeah, I won races for them. I won 2 Supercross. So anyway, I watch their lack of interest in development over the last decade. It's been a while since they've really made a push. They've kind of pulled out of racing and sort of handed it off to different teams, which started in your era, we'll get to. And man, I just think, what are you guys going to go away? Is there going to be a resurgence? Is it just management? Is it the Japanese management? I've kind of always heard, like with Honda, if the main guy in Japan is a racing fan, then the racing budget grows. And if he's not, it shrinks.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of the way it's going, you think? And this is something that I think surprised the heck out of me, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard in terms of all the Japanese manufacturers, they're the second biggest company to Honda when you add Marine and all of the car and everything else. Auto. And I thought, I just wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I think financially they're probably the most stable as well.
And see, in motocross, we'd say, oh man, they're about to go bankrupt.
Out of business. Yeah. That's all I heard. Yeah. Well, I think what happened is you're right, first of all, about leadership dictating what racing would be. You'd get a new president from Japan every 4 years, 5 years, and it's no different than this country.
Right.
You're hoping your guy gets in, and if you got a guy that was into racing and loved it, you were set for 5 years. Your budgets went through, and it was good times. If you had a guy that was just counting numbers and racing's a big vacuum that just sucks up money, then it sucked. So that was very true. But I think what happened is, as a company, they looked at what they do, which is motorcycle manufacturing, marine, which is super profitable, and auto. And, they were in America, the cars for years, but they pulled all that. But what people don't realize is their numbers in third world nations is off the charts. Yeah. My wife's Brazilian, so I spent a lot of time in Brazil. And I remember the first time I went there, every other car was a Suzuki. I'm like, well, this is where they're selling all the cars. But same with India, Vietnam, that kind of thing. So I think they
and the populations down there are way more dense than what we have.
Absolutely, massive. And they're producing like 3-cylinder little things that don't cost. There's not a lot of R&D, not a lot of cost factor, and they're killing it. So whoever it is made the decision that let's be a profitable company. That's where we're going to go. And unfortunately, as much as we have the passion for racing, it's the cost of being competitive is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The R&D, the cost of promoting racing at the highest level is just an absolute drain. And if you don't have a company that believes in it, then you're in trouble because you're trying to compete. And I used to say this all the time. I would be trying to compete against Honda, which had unlimited budget, so many zeros after the, and our budget was so small in comparison to Honda at the time, or even Yamaha, Kawasaki at the time. This was kind of before KTM really got big, but the fact that we could compete and win races or win titles every now and then was just, to me, it was like so unbelievable that we could do that, because it was so unfair based on the budgets, what we were dealing with versus them.
Right.
But
which is the great thing about Supercross and Motocross versus Indy, because it would never happen in IndyCar, right?
Yeah.
The rider and group can still overcome.
And Kenny's proof of that.
Yeah.
Absolute proof of that.
Yeah.
So, but again, going back to Suzuki, I think they made that conscious decision to pull out of motorcycles, the racing aspect, because MotoGP, they did the same with MotoGP. We're going to go do MotoGP. And they friggin' win the title twice. It's like what Honda's and Yamaha's budget must have been at the time compared to Suzuki, and yet they did it. They won.
And then just pulled out.
And
that's the craziest
thing. Just pulled the plug. And just, And so getting back to what the company's like now, it's a shell of what it was. That's for sure.
On the racing side.
On the racing side. Even the headquarters in Brea, I don't know how many people are working there now, but it's literally a handful compared to what back in the 2000s it was a thriving company, Well,
because they pulled the cars out, right? So that was obviously that was a ton of personnel, and
that was half the building disappeared. But then as they slowly started cutting back, the workforce shrunk, and they started letting district sales guys go and regional sales guys, and everything got smaller and smaller. So the people there now, I think, do a good job. Still kind of administering what they have to work with, but the company is just it's a speck of what it was.
Yeah, so it makes it even more impressive when you see them out, like, and I give a lot of credit to Larry Brooks.
Me
obviously
too.
The HEP guys, Pipes, the Pipes family they're funding it a lot.
Yeah.
But Larry, he is doing all that development and pushing all that on his own.
Yeah.
He deserves a lot of credit, and
Absolutely.
I try to drag him on here, and he's not, Larry. He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He doesn't want anyone to even talk about him.
Yeah.
He wants to do it all, toil in the trenches, but he's doing incredible things over there.
Well, that company is an amazing engineering company and a really poor marketing company.
Yeah.
That's how I've always looked at them. The product that they produce and some of the things they brought to racing, some of the 450 RMZ was the first fuel injected 4-stroke.
Yeah.
Nobody really talked about it. It was like, okay, it's fuel injected. Yeah, but you put a 4-speed in it. So you screwed. I remember that was the big thing. We were so proud of the bike, and I had done quite a bit of R&D testing and pre-production testing on it, and I'm like, this thing is good. And I wanted a 5-speed because everybody else was, but Japan, for some reason, and I think a lot of it came from Europe, maybe on the Gabor side, they were pushing the 4-speed. But they're going, it's fuel injected, push the fuel injected with the median. I'm like, yeah, but you guys put a 4-speed in it, it's going to kind of kill it. I know how America thinks. And sure enough, we got beat up on it. And yet, that bike was unbelievable.
Yeah, and who's using, if you're in 5th gear on a 450?
who's doing that? Nobody.
Unless you're in Baltimore doing a wheelie down Main Street. You don't need it.
So,
talk a little bit about, I've always thought, once I got a little older and started actually understanding the numbers, there's no way these companies make back what they spend on Supercross and Motocross. I can't speak for off-road and other disciplines, but knowing what they pay a team, or what, let's say factory Honda, what they spend to hire those personnel, have all of those rigs, all the parts that they have to purchase, because they still pay for that from HRC. It comes out of a budget somewhere.
Yeah.
Then you got to pay Jet and Hunter and Joe and Chance. And then you got to travel. I mean, it's astronomical, the numbers. Yeah. And then you got to pay their bonuses, which, you want to win. But then when you do win, it's like,
that
oh, boy.
infrastructure to support them as well as the test mechanics and the engine room guys. And
there's no way they sell enough bikes
not even
to
close.
Cover that and then make any kind of profit.
Yeah, not even close.
They never see the black, right?
No.
Okay.
It's all based on a winning image, a brand. It's all branding.
So image marketing. That's kind of how it's they know they're going to lose money.
Right.
They're okay with it.
And they go into that in the budget knowing that. So we'll make money elsewhere. Our street line or whatever it is going to cover the cost. But we need that image where we don't make blenders. That was the thing Suzuki would say. We don't sell blenders. We sell competitive motorcycles. So we have to race. We have to prove they're competitive. So they never make the money back.
So for a company like Suzuki, I like, you have such a good in-depth knowledge over there. I like to bounce these things off you. Like, is it, if they stop racing, then you said, it's like, well, what do we make? We aren't competitive. But if you put this half-assed effort in, which I'm not saying what HEP is, I mean, they're killing it this year, but the support they're getting versus what any other team is getting is zero.
Yeah, they're getting bikes.
They're getting very lucky that Larry is so good and Kenny is such a good rider and everything else. Is it almost doing them more harm than good? You know
what? I see your point. It's
either come out and put an effort in and be competitive or don't.
Yeah,
I would say.
Again, it goes back to their engineering. That motorcycle is pretty much the last bike we had, the bike Kenny's riding.
Yeah.
As far as the development, everything that's been done to it to this point, I understand they have a new transmission where maybe they had some different ratios built, but that's pretty much the same bike we ended up with. And we had full factory supporting, we had full factory R&D. If we wanted a part, they were making the part. The fact that bike is that old, so, I mean, that goes back to 2016. It's almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
That platform is still winning races. It's still a podium bike. Kenny is an alien. He's unbelievable. But that tells you how good that motorcycle is, how good the engineering was. So in going back to what you said, it does make Suzuki like, are you kidding me? Look what you're doing and you're not even trying.
I know.
And look what you have here. Put a little effort into it.
Yeah.
But
that's why I don't know what to think, because I'm like, you're not even trying and you're still up. You're good. He's probably going to win a race this year. Right? It's a matter of time. And it's almost like, it's a shame because they're going, oh, well, look, we're still winning. We don't have to do anything,
And they still, they just released that new dual sport. It's a rehashed DRZ, I think.
Yeah.
But it's all new bodywork, and and it's like, well, clearly you still have some engineers there doing something. I think their adventure bike lineup, they redid that last year. Clearly, there's still people there doing things. I don't understand.
I believe, and we're getting super into the weeds, but like, put better suspension on those bikes, put electric start on them, maybe just a little bit of extra performance, and you're there.
Yeah.
The chassis is great.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a frustration of mine. But I love just talking about it. So we might get into a little more down the road. Hey, get over to whiskeythrottlemedia.com, guys. We got a lot of content over there, including an off-road feature, which is going to be a lot of fun. We've got a few episodes in, a lot of cool stuff over there. But moto, off-road, pit bike stuff coming. So check it out. Our guest story is brought to you by Yamaha. Join the Blue Crew today, guys. You may or may not suck less, but at least you'll have a great bike under you while you do it. Let's get started with your story, man. Tell me where you grew up.
I grew up in the San Fernando Valley.
Okay. What year?
So I was born in the 54. So we started getting into dirt bikes in the early 60s, right when the giant boom hit. So I have two brothers, Tom, my older brother that you mentioned from the magazines, and I have a younger brother, Tip.
Okay. See, I don't know that I ever met your younger brother.
Yeah. So he's been in construction his whole life, but he rode his whole life with us. But we were blessed. We were part of that explosion of the 60s when, I think it started with maybe the Honda step-throughs and the whole motorcycling thing took off. We were so lucky to be a part of that. And at the time, the valley there was fields everywhere, there was orchards everywhere, and you could ride.
There's a meme or a little Instagram thing going around, and it hit me. It's a picture of a kid from about that era on an old little step-through Honda riding from his house out into the hills.
Right.
And it says, "I'm homesick for a place that no longer exists."
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it was. That's exactly what it was.
That's why it had to be a cool time for that area, because now it's nothing but houses.
But it reminded me driving up to your house how it looked like the valley. That's what there was just fields and everything was open. But what was amazing, it was a perfect. It was one of those where everything perfectly came together. That openness was there in the valley. There was kind of a freedom of that time as a kid. Things were way less restricted. A kid you could leave all day long and your parents wouldn't freak out because there wasn't the culture there is now.
Right.
So all that was happening. And motorcycles, as the sport started taking off, we were just little field groms. We would get whatever, like mini bikes that we could hobble together, made from lawnmower parts, whatever.
All my buddies used to have the little pull start.
That's what they were.
No suspension, just squishy tires.
Taco 44s they were called, and we would get those and
have a blast. Right?
And it seemed like everybody in the neighborhood was into it. It's crazy. We would have 5, 6, 7 friends, and we all did the same thing. And it's everybody after school, let's go meet in the field. And we had a little loop around the field that we would ride, and it was that thing, that passion. And RJ always talks about this. When he was a little kid, he goes, I still, when I ride to this day, that little kid's in me. And I go, I'm exactly the same way. I'll never forget that. Being that freedom of riding a motorcycle when I was a little guy, just nobody could bug me, no teachers, my parents, nobody can bug me. I can do whatever I want on this dirt bike. So that was part of that whole magic era. And then on any Sunday hit. So
was that 75?
So on any Sunday, I want to say it was 71 maybe.
Okay.
So we would just ride in the field and we were geeks with our hobbled together bikes, but every once in a while a good guy would show up, like a legit guy that raced, and he'd be on a trick Hodaka or something, and we would stop and just watch and like, oh my God, and he'd ride wheelies. It's like he's doing a wheelie, or and we would be so blown away. And then on Any Sunday came out, we went to On Any Sunday, and that just changed everything, because we were stick and ball kids. We played Little League. And
okay, I was going to ask you that. Did you do other?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean,
we did the whole Pop Warner. We did all that, and we were good at it. All three of us were good.
How much older is?
Tom is 1 year older than me,
and
I'm 3 years older than my little brother.
You guys were tight then.
We were tight.
Oh, that's great.
So, and we still are. We still ride together to this day, which
that's
is
awesome.
Yeah, cool. But on Any Sunday, boy, you talk about just a game changer. Literally, we walked out of the theater and we looked at each other and we go, okay, that's what we're doing.
This is our life.
Everything just changed. Came home, Mom, Dad, sit down. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be. And it literally changed everything. And it's funny because right after that, Tom was maybe Pop Warner football or still maybe freshman high school football.
Okay.
And the coach told the guys on the team, he goes, hey, look, this weekend there's a motorcycle race out at Westlake, Westlake's kind of between the valley and the beach in Malibu.
Okay.
Right? And
can't even imagine there would be motorcycle races there.
Well,
now
it was an old movie set at the time, and it's just rolling green hills. It looked like where they would film The Hobbit or something. It's just beautiful. And he goes, there's a motorcycle race this weekend. If any of you kids want to go, I'll pick you up. I'll take you. I'm taking my son. So Tom goes. We had just seen On Any Sunday. Well, it was the Westlake Grand Prix, which was the start of the Interam when the Euros first came over.
Oh.
So DeCoster was there, and Torsten Hallman was there, Robert, all the Euro.
You're kidding me.
No. Tom goes. He has no clue what it is. He gets there, and there's DeCoster riding a wheelie.
Do you guys know who these people are?
We barely know who they are.
Okay.
We knew who they were after that. And Tom came home, and he's just like, okay, it's way more than we thought. It is so insane with these guys. They are the coolest thing. Football is nothing compared to these guys. They do cross-ups and they ride wheelies, and we were so blown away.
Yeah.
And it was just feeding us. I mean, everything just kept feeding us, and the passion just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was such a magical time. I'm so blessed to have been through it.
Yeah, just the attitude about motorcycles and kind of everything was so much different. You know, you mentioned coming in, we got some open hills and stuff around me here, and I'm like, man, they hear anything that sounds like a motorcycle, and there's 12 Karens on top of you, you know, getting your license number or whatever. Back then, I feel like in the 60s, you know, everybody's all chilled out on the devil's lettuce or mushrooms. They didn't care at all,
So.
you know?
I think so. And it's funny because we would get our bikes. Funny story, our Tom's godfather was the marketing vice president of Pepsi-Cola.
Okay.
And his wife and my mom were nurses. My mom was a nurse. They worked together as nurses. But anyway, this guy, this VP at Pepsi, Suzuki was, they had a giveaway contest, and a Suzuki 50 was the contest, the number one prize. And he made it so we won, right? So
he kind of rigged it?
Yeah, he rigged it. Yeah. So we get a Suzuki 50.
MR50, was it that
No,
bike?
it was so funny. I didn't even know what it was called, but it was based on more on a MotoGP bike because they used to have a 50cc class in road racing, in GPs. And Suzuki was the world champion like 5 years in a row or something. So it was like a little cafe bike.
Yeah, like the YSR 50.
Kind of, yeah. And so we got that. Of course, we chopped the fenders off, took the headlight off, put on crossbar handlebars.
Oh, geez.
You know, and we turned it into a dirt bike, right? We tried. But it's funny, the first thing we did is we cut the pipe and pulled out the baffle, made it as loud as we could. And everybody did that. You made your bike as loud as you could. So that field next door, it was surrounded by houses.
Oh,
but it was the fact that, I mean, we got away with it for 4 or 5 years. Cops wouldn't come. And it must have been so loud.
Chainsaws buzzing
just
around
the whole time, yeah. But nowadays, like you said, there's...
So that's what I'm saying. What changed so much?
I don't know.
Where now everybody's mad
America
right away.
Everything changed. I was blessed. It was unbelievable.
You know, there's a theory that we just don't have any real problems anymore, right? Like we have it so good that any little thing is like, oh, I can't believe that, right? We're clutching our pearls.
Yeah.
Back then it was like, you know, people had experienced the Depression, you know, the grandparents and parents and
World War II.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
like they knew real problems.
Yeah,
they knew
real stuff.
They're like a little noise in the field next door with the kids having fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about that. You know,
absolutely.
I don't know if there's any truth to that. I might sound like a grumpy old man.
No. I agree.
It's a shame. Okay, so this is how you kind of now have covered how you got introduced to dirt bikes. You talked about Tom's first race. When did you go racing?
So Tom went to that race, and then our bikes kind of slowly stepped up better and better, and we had to go earn everything ourselves. My dad and my mom both worked full time, and they certainly didn't have a budget to buy us dirt bikes. So if we wanted to do it, they weren't mega supportive, but they would let us go because it kept us out of trouble, and we would go get a job, and we would earn the money. So our bikes got better and better, and then I had a friend in school that he started racing, and I was like, shit, this guy's racing, man. He's so rad. And he goes, hey, I'm doing a race this weekend. You want to go? And I go, yeah, I'd love to go. So I go there, and he rides practice, and it was at a place called Bay Mare. It's not there anymore, but it was this epic track. In the same area. Okay. They had a couple of nationals there, and you know, the Euros were there at back then. But that day he goes, hey, do you want to race one of the motos? And now I'm still like a field monkey, right? And I'm like,
maybe a horseshoe.
I think we had one jump in our field loop, and it wasn't even a jump; it was like a bump, and you pulled up, you could do a wheelie. But he goes, do you want to race a moto? I'm like, I think okay.
How old are you at this point?
Jeez, I'm 13, 14 maybe.
Okay.
And I go, okay. And so he rides the first moto, and he was on a Yamaha AT1 125. I'll never forget that. This was pre-YZ.
Yeah.
And it was like Yamaha's first enduro, and he'd taken all the lights off and made it into a motorbike. And I put his gear on, and I'm on the gate going, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't belong here. And I got lapped, I want to say 3 times at least. And I don't think I ever made a lap without falling down.
Yeah.
And I was scared to death the entire time. It's like the whole time it was just sensory overload. It's like, I have no business doing this. I can't wait till this is over. And I came back and I told my brothers, and like, hey, how was it? I raced. And they're going, and I go, guys, it's way over our heads.
We're in the deep end with no wings here, buddy.
We don't have it. We don't have it. They're like, everybody's bummed. I'm like, it's the most gnarliest thing. Football, I don't care what, nothing compares to it. It's so scary. Guys are screaming at me, revving their bikes, bumping into me. Well, it's interesting because it kind of set something off in me that it kind of pissed me off that it affected me that much. So we kept riding, and then
I'm only laughing because I had a similar experience. Like I was so terrified of my first race, and so I can relate.
But I stayed with it, and we kept riding, and then I upgrade to a better bike, again a used bike, but a better one, and upgrade, and it's a year later, and Tom
not racing in this interim.
No, we've never raced, but now we're kind of practicing. Like we would go. Indian Dunes was a real popular place. It had just opened, and we would go there and ride like a real motocross track.
Okay,
and so we kind of started getting our feet wet, and so it's the week before, and it's a year later. Tom goes, I'm going to go race. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he goes, yeah, I'm going for it. And I'm like, all right, buddy. And I had a job at a gas station, so I couldn't go. So the whole time I'm thinking, God, I hope he does good. And he comes back. And he goes, yeah, I raced both motos. He goes, I finished like 5th. I'm like, are you kidding me? He goes, no, it was 250 beginner class. And he goes, no, I got like 5th. And I'm like, God, you're like DeCosta. I was so blown away. And the next week I'm going to race. So, and I worked it out. I had the week of it. And I had saved up. I had bought a CZ 250, which at the time was
a good bike.
It was a good bike. It was bulletproof, which is what I needed because I didn't know how to work on anything. And went to the race, and ping, I won both motos.
No, what? Like your second race
was like going away.
Okay.
I mean, and I remember in the second moto going, shit, this is the easiest thing I've ever done. It was so easy, and I came in, and Tom, I think, finished 3rd or something, and he wasn't real happy because he's my older brother, and we're super competitive anyway. But I won that, and then raced again the next week, and I won that one, and I think I won the first 3 or 4 in a row again, and I'm like, well, clearly, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be a racer. So it went from being lapped to a year later to winning. So
was Tip following along?
So Tip was younger, and he was on a 125. He always had like terrible bikes that wouldn't even finish a moto. Okay. But he had a lot of talent, not a lot of dedication.
Okay.
But he was racing, like 125 novice. But the 250 wars were pretty heated. That was pretty, and you got to remember back then. I mean, it was full gates. Yeah. It was. Everybody raced. It was gigantic. It was really popular. So.
Yeah, 300, 400, 500 people at a race.
Easy. On just a local weekend. Yeah. So
yeah, different world. Even into the 80s, it was that way. When I would come over here for Golden States,
right?
They
were massive
heats to get into the motos.
Yeah, remember just getting into the parking in the morning. The line would be forever.
Yeah, it was like an amateur national at every one. That's great. So, what? You had your brothers that you were riding with and local kids. Was there any kind of local pros in the area that you looked up to?
Yeah. I went to school. Do you know Jim Hale?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I went to school from kindergarten through the 6th grade with Jim Hale. And he, about the 3rd or 4th grade, he got into dirt bikes. And I remember, Jim did everything great. I used to call him Midas. No matter what that guy touched, it worked. And so Hale, like after elementary school, he got into junior high. He became a local expert, and we were tight in elementary school, and then he kind of got famous. He was like the local guy that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was the famous local pro, and everything about the guy. I remember he had the best looking girlfriend, and his kit was so cool looking. The way his helmet was, everything he did was so cool. His bikes were so cool, and. So he was our local guy, and then Kenny Zart, which would go on to do nationals. He won a national. He was a local guy too. The generation after me, O'Mara, Jimmy Hawley, they were all Indian Dunes guys. They were all from that era. So
a little bit younger then, though. Or?
They were younger, but we were Dunes guys. It was kind of weird how SoCal was split up. Then you were either an Indian Dunes guy. And Muntz was another place we raced, or you were a Saddleback Carlsbad guy, which was considered down south. So
SoCal was kind of split into north and south.
And those guys were better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the track was way, Saddleback and Carlsbad were legit GP tracks, and Indian Dunes was flat, and there was no, elevation of any kind.
Okay.
They were just gnarlier, but yeah, that was our local crowd. So.
And Jim, for people that don't know, went on to own Axo, right?
Yeah, he developed Axo, and first he went to work for Jim O'Neill as a salesman. So in the interim, Tom and I go to work at a Honda dealership called Colby Honda, which was in Woodland Hills, and it's kind of famous because that's where Dave Arnold came from.
Oh.
Dave Arnold worked there. They had a bunch of good local pros that they supported, but O'Neill, I worked in the parts department with Jim Hale's brother, Nick Hale, who was another good local pro. Excuse me. And Jim was the salesman for O'Neill. He would come in like every week, and, we would buy like 10 Bell helmets and boots and whatever. And Hale was killing it. The guy, like I said, everything he did right.
Gosh, he was just successful.
I mean, he was probably 19, and he was, I don't know what kind of money he was making, but it was big money. And then he turned that, he got with Remo, and he brought in the Axo boot, and I think maybe the kidney belt, and then that developed into the whole Axo lineup, and he took that and just blew. I mean, it was as big as it got, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I think maybe Fox would rival that, but Axo in the 80s, 90s,
The Bradshaw Stanton era,
there was nothing cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was
as cool as, and they were so cutting edge with their marketing, and their design team were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But of course, then he flips that into mechanics wear, and that was Jim Hale too. It's like, so,
gosh, you're right. He was just
the guy couldn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
So.
He passed about 10 years ago?
Yeah, weird deal. He had a back surgery, and he wasn't supposed to fly the next day, and he took a flight, from what I understand, and it was a blood clot. Took him out. Yeah.
Gosh dang it.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about where your racing career went. You get out of high school, are you still competing?
Yeah, so I keep racing, and I get better and better and better. I got real lucky. My girlfriend, her dad owned the local Yamaha shop. So when the very first YZ came out, it was in 74. It was called a YZ 250A, and it was the first absolute race replica sold. So like nowadays you can get all the replica, the CRF and the KX, they got the trick forks and the anodizing, all that. Well, this thing was literally exactly the same thing the GP guys were racing, these Yamahas. And I want to say they brought in 1,000 of them maybe, or they brought for one for every dealer in the United States. And that bike was supposed to go to the local pro to show how good they were. And they were full-blown works bikes. I mean, They were machined down tubes on the forks and dished bolts and drilled out. They were so badass. So I got one because of my girlfriend, and I just crushed it on that thing.
You were in the pro class at that time?
I was just transitioning to it, and everything was working. I was young, I was strong, I was fast. I had great equipment. And everything was going great, and had my map all set out in front of me. And then we were racing the Indian Dunes, and I got a hole shot coming down. It was a downhill left-hand start, and they just watered, and I threw it away in the left-hander. It was kind of a dog leg, and I threw it away, and I remember sliding out going, shit, there's 40 guys behind me, and everybody's pinned into this downhill, and I'm scrambling off the track, trying to, like, kind of on all fours, scrambling off, and I get T-boned in the side. Oh. And it broke all my ribs, but the worst part was it shoved a bunch of broken bone into my kidneys and lacerated my kidneys. So I was beat up from the crash, but I got off, and I remember that afternoon, I'm like, man, I didn't race second moto on that afternoon.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well, back then I probably would have tried, but I get back on, I go to the bathroom, and I'm pissing pure blood.
Oh boy.
I'm like, well, clearly that's not right. And my mom's a nurse, right? So she let us race and ride, but was always like, as a nurse, knew. Yeah. She saw a lot of crazy shit coming in the hospital. So for a couple of days, I didn't tell her. I'm like, and I'm just bleeding blood every day. I'm pissing blood every day. And I'm like, Finally, about the third day, I go, I got to tell her. This is not going away. And I tell her, and she's like, okay, well, you got something internal. And she goes, what happened? I go, I got hit and I crashed. And I got broken ribs, but I'm faking that around the house. I'm like, I don't want my parents to know. Anyway, long story, they took me to a bunch of doctors, and the first couple were like, yeah, we got to pull the kidney out. And I'm like, I'm pretty naive, I'm like, pull the kidney, that sounds gnarly. And my mom's going, do you know what they do? And I'm like, no. She goes, they're going to put you on an operating table that hinges in the middle. And then they're going to open you from here all the way to your back because your kidney's huge to get your kidney on. I'm like, no, they're not doing that. She goes, yeah. I go, let's keep looking for somebody else. And we went to, I think it was a specialist at UCLA, and he goes, let's try this. Complete bed rest. I mean, complete bed rest. You don't get out of bed except to walk to the bathroom and come back. Let's see because the kidney can't scab. It had big holes. It was all lacerated. It can't scab because it's an organ.
It's a solid organ, right?
It's a solid organ. Yeah. So let's see if it can heal itself without pulling it out. So I forget it was 3 months or something, bed rest.
3 months?
Yeah. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like 170 pounds of pure rock steel. I'm just an absolute legit athlete at the time. And 3 months of bed rest. And after that 3 months, I was a skeleton. I was an absolute stick, but it eventually stopped bleeding. And the doctor, they scared the crap out of me. They're going, okay, here's the thing. You can never race again. You can never actually do anything active again. If you jostle it, because this is Frankenstein medical back in the day. If you jostle it, it's going to just start bleeding again. And you're going to have it. We'll have to take it out. And I'm like, so I go from being, a pure rad kid athlete to I can't do anything. So I was really lost in life. I didn't know. I had no clue what to do. I was going to be a racer. That's what I was going to do, and I have no idea what to do now. So the next chapter was like I was pretty confused and had no directions, and there was nothing that I could fulfill that was even close to racing. So I had to get through that period, which was.
What were you doing?
I took up rock climbing. So I got into free climbing because it was the rush, the adrenaline of doing it. I really got into that heavily. I got into backpacking. I really got into hiking because I just wanted to be active and athletic.
Yeah.
But I went a long time. I went back to school, college, and then meanwhile, Tom was a local pro in motocross. He had made local pro as well. He had transitioned over to off-road. And so as a local pro, he was a fast motocrosser. He goes to off-road. There was a guy, Colby Honda, a guy that they had a motocross team and an off-road team. And one of the guys in the off-road team goes, hey, Tom, you should come over and try one of these desert enduros. He goes, they're pretty cool. And Tom goes, all right, enduros. I'm a motocrosser. I don't do that. He goes, just come out and try it. So Tom goes, and they were all sponsored on Can-Ams at the time. That was the cool bike. And Tom brings like motocross speed to this desert enduro, and he's just like faster than everybody, by 10 times faster than everybody. But it's a timed event. So back then enduros were you had so much time to make it to the next check. You had a route sheet you had to follow, and it was like really involved.
Well, there was penalties for being early, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's just burning it, like he's burning every check. But he's so fast. People are like, holy crap, because he was kind of like the first motocrosser to come into off-road.
Yeah.
So he comes on, he goes, Mike, it's pretty cool because you ride all day. He goes, we're not sitting around like we are in moto waiting, for our 2 motos. He goes, you ride like for 5 hours. So he goes and does another one. Eventually he learns the game and takes the speed, and he instantly is successful in SoCal. And he becomes, back then district racing was huge. So SoCal was District 37, NorCal was just District 36, et cetera. He becomes district number 1, and he's killing it. He's just killing it. And the national enduros, would come around. So there would be one in, I think there was 12 during the year, and one in Florida, one in Illinois, one in Oklahoma, et cetera. And there was one in SoCal. And it was Oh no, I'm sorry. There was one in New Mexico, and so Tom goes to the one in New Mexico, and he wins the National Enduro. It's like, he comes up and goes, dude, I won. I go, you won a freaking national? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, holy cow! And he was on a Yamaha he bought. He put Mako forks on it, and he wins this enduro. And at the time, Dirt Bike Magazine was the Bible that it was back then. It was huge. They needed a legit off-road guy. They had Super Hunky running it, and they had Paul Clipper, but they needed a racer, a legit racer, and they hired Tom. So that's what started that whole path. But yeah, I remember when he called me. He goes, "Yeah, Dirt Bike called." I go, "Dirt Bike Magazine?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm going to go to work for him," and he started.
Was Dirt Bike? My producer Nate was asking me, what was the first magazine? Was it MXA or was High Torque Publications a thing, and they had multiple?
Yeah, they Dirt Bike was before MXA.
Okay.
But before Dirt Bike, there was like Modern Cycle was like a real heavy dirt influence. But then when Dirt Bike, it was absolutely dedicated to dirt only.
Okay.
And that kind of changed. And then MXA branched off from that. But MXA originally was Dick Miller, and he was great. And then Jody took over after that. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You think Mosman's the guy over there to pick up will he take Jody's spot?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that kid.
He's a great kid.
I like that kid. I like everything about him.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, so at some point you obviously got another opinion about the kidney. When did that happen?
Yeah. So that was pretty funny. So Tom is racing the enduros now. He's like Johnny Enduro, and it's 5 years later, or 6 years later, and he's like, he goes, "Hey, come to a race." He goes, the club I'm in, once a year we have to work a race. We can't race it. And it wasn't a national, might have been, but it was a big race. And he goes, "Just come out and camp out. We're camping out." And I'm going, "Yeah, okay." And
you're not riding at all?
No, I had not touched. I was scared to death. If I touched a bike, I would start bleeding. That's how paranoid I was. But we went there, and it was actually, we camped up in up by Arrowhead, was like the halfway point. And he had brought up a couple of bikes. And he goes, "Hey, let's go for a putt." And I go, "What are you, nuts? I can't ride. Tell me, I'll just burst into bleeding." And he goes, "Come on, let's just go putt. And we'll just ride the fire roads." And I go, "Okay." And I get on, and just getting on, I was like, "Oh my God, I missed this so much." But we're putting around the fire roads, and I go, "I can't hit any bumps," and we kind of ride around, and then we go for another little ride, and we end up riding a lot. And the whole time, I'm not going to the bathroom, right? I haven't gone, and I got
terrified to pee,
and we got to drive home, and I'm not going. And I'm like, I know it's going to be pure blood. I know it. I know I hit a couple of bumps, and I go to the bathroom. There's nothing, and I'm like, huh. So I tell Tom. He goes, "Well, come on again next week." So I go out the next week. I ride a little bit more. A month later, I'm back at it 100%, and it healed 100% to this day. So
no residual or deficits.
Nothing. No.
The body's incredible.
The resiliency of the human body is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole. I've seen some things as a paramedic that you just think there's no way this guy's alive. Pull up on a car crash scene, someone was ejected and out in a field, and you're like, "Oh, this guy's I'm gonna be lucky if he's in one piece."
Right.
And he's like, probably drunk. Those guys usually fare the best, but he's fine. Couple scratches, and you're just like,
talking to you. Yeah.
How in the world, man?
Amazing.
That's crazy. Well, okay. So did you get back into racing again? What was your move from there?
No. So Tom hired me brought me into the magazine as a tester.
Okay.
So,
was that a full-time position?
No, because I was still working. I was working I was working whatever I could, construction, everything. But whenever he would call, it's like, "We're doing a shootout, or doing a test, or I need you as a photo model," whatever. So I would just do that all the time whenever he called, and I hadn't really started racing again. I was just doing that primarily. That's where I got. So Jimmy Hawley was the other tester magazine guy. So I got to work with Jimmy a lot back then.
Another great human being.
Oh, what a great guy. Yeah. And so I did that a lot. And then I started racing with Tom. I started doing enduros with Tom. And again, he's the winning enduro guy, and he would go, come on. I go, I want to race today. He goes, okay. He goes, you can come on and race. And I would be on his minute. Well, Tom would have all this elaborate timekeeping equipment, route sheets and clocks, and I have a crossbar, right? And because I'm too lazy to learn how to keep time. But I'm getting really good again. Everything's coming back fast. And so we're riding, and I'm kind of as fast as Tom. I just don't know how to keep time. So Tom's doing all the work, and he's hitting all the checks perfectly, and we would haul ass, and there would be like an uphill, and all of a sudden he'd get out of it, and I'd go, oh, there's a check on the other side. And you'd kind of like trials ride up because he's scrubbing off time, so he's not early to the check. And I'm behind him. I'm riding wheelies and doing jumps. I'm just screwing around, and then I get behind him. And one of these big races, I finished like second overall, like barely. Tom barely beats me by a couple of seconds, and I'm goofing off the whole time, and he's pissed. He goes, you need to learn how to keep time if you're going to do this. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. So we go out, another race again. Same scenario. He's behind me. We come up to a hill. He hauls ass at the last second, and I'm going, oh, shit, we're late. And I'm just jamming. At the top of the hill, he just grabs the brakes and hits
Oh, he set you up.
I fly over the side. I burned the check by like 30 seconds. I finished like 18th. And he looks at me and goes, now you're going to learn how to keep time. And I'm going, okay. But it got the racing thing going again, but now I'd missed my window. I'm a vet, right? And but it was cool because I had a blast as a vet. I loved racing as a vet. I got into that, and I raced a lot in my 40s. I really got into it, but it was cool because I had Suzuki. I was doing R&D. I was doing a lot of riding during the week anyway, and managing. But I would race if we weren't racing. With the off-road team, I was at local motocross so.
Yeah, probably. It's interesting to me, guys that race professionally, and especially it seems like the more success they had, the less likely they are to keep riding when they retire. Yeah. I don't know why maybe they burn out, maybe they don't. I
think in motocross for sure. Off-road guys tend to keep riding. Yeah.
It's very weird to me because to me, I don't know what I'd do if I had to quit.
Right.
It would be bad on my mental health.
But you're like Rodney, though. It's in your blood. You need to ride. But like MK is a perfect, Kudrowski is a perfect example. He raced for me. He raced motocross. He quit, became an electrician, and then I wanted to hire him for off-road because I hired his old mechanic, Shane Nally, worked for me. And I go, let's get MK and do the works. The work series had just started. I go, let's get MK. And I had to talk to him for 6 months to convince him to come race. And
he hadn't been riding at all.
Yeah, he had stopped. He goes, no, man, I'm an electrician now. I'm going, dude, you're an apprentice. You're making like $11 an hour. I go, I'll pay you $100 a year to do 10 races. And he's like, no, let me think about it. I'm like, what? But he raced for me for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, almost as long as he did moto, and had a blast. But when it was done, it was done.
Yeah.
Never again. So.
Yeah, some guys can do that. It's interesting. But tell me, so how did you get into the industry? So you were test riding for Dirt Rider with Tom.
So I was doing magazine stuff all the time, and then and I was like a lot of magazine stuff because Tom then had transitioned over from dirt bike to Dirt Rider. Okay. And Dirt Rider had a lot more money than Dirt Bike. They were owned by Peterson Publications, which owned like Car and Driver and some of these, I think. Popular Mechanics, so these giant mega books at the time. And so Tom was using me all the time, and I got my friend Joe Colombero was the head of Suzuki's. It was called Sports Promotion, which there was factory racing, factory motocross, factory road racing, and then Sports Promotion is what the off-road team was under. I believe the Primal team, Cole Gress's amateur, all that was under Sports Promotion. That was the umbrella that was under. And Joe Colombero was a friend of mine. He was running it, and he called me up. He goes, hey, this off-road position is open, this manager. He goes, you want to apply? I go, hell yeah, I'll be there in a minute. So I go down, I apply, I do the interview, and I don't hear anything. And a couple of months later, he goes, yeah, they want you. I'm like, right on.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you were in charge, you oversaw all of those programs?
No, so I was they put me in off-road.
Oh, just off-road.
And off-road at the time was, there was one box fan, and they raced national enduros. They had Randy Hawkins, Steve Hatch, and Randy was a multi-time national enduro champion. And they brought me in to run it, and the first guy I hired, I had Randy and Steve. Their contracts continued because I came in '92, and the first guy, I hired was Rodney.
Okay.
And the same thing with Rodney. He had done motocross. He had done Brazil. He had done the GPs. He came back, and Pat gave him a bike, a couple of 125s, to do the nationals, and he was burned out. He was totally smoked on moto, and I saw him. We were up in Gardnerville, up by Reno, and there was a big qualifier, national qualifier, and I was racing it with Tom, and there was a couple of guys in front of me, and we're all getting ready to take off. We're in different rows, and I see this guy in all BFE gear, full Euro, like
ugly,
ugly as can be. That weird, like, molded in visor that you couldn't even see on him. But this guy's full Biaffe, and I'm like, God, full Euro guy, and he's on a stock RM 250 with a big tank. At the time, Larry Rossler was the god of off-road. He won everything, especially in the West. But Hawkins was there. All the hot off-road national guys were at this event, and there's this guy on the Suzuki, about 5 rows up. So the race is going on, and it was kind of like a 6 days format where there would be special tests, and the fastest time would be posted, and this guy in the Suzuki just says Smith. He's posting fast time in every event. I'm like, what the hell is this guy, man? He's killing it. And then in the final moto, they would have a final moto, like 6 days. There's a big crash in the start. Rossler's bike falls on top of Rodney's, and it's Rodney. I don't know at the time. Rossler is standing on Rodney's bike, picking up his own. It was kind of like Tedesco and Alessi, right? Okay. And Rodney takes off dead last, catches everybody, wins the moto, and wins the race. And I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to this guy. And I just started at Suzuki, right? So I'm like, I don't know who he is, but I got to have this guy. He just kicked everybody's ass. And we started talking, and he goes, no, I'm only in it for fun. I don't want to race. And I'm like, damn. So we kept in contact.
Did you know, sorry to interrupt, did you know who he was?
No.
You didn't know his history?
I barely knew his motocross. I remember his name.
Okay.
Because I think Holly told me, because they would be on the road together. He would travel with Jimmy and the Yamaha support guys.
Okay.
Who was, forget the other guy, a kid out of Florida, Kenny Keelan.
Oh, Kenny Keelan.
And Rodney were kind of on the same support deal with Yamaha.
Rodney has an incredible, for anybody listening or watching, go back and watch the Rodney Smith Whiskey Throttle Show episode. His career was phenomenal, crazy underrated. You and I were talking about it earlier. Yeah. And a great dude, but what he accomplished was wild.
Unbelievable.
With like zero notoriety.
Yeah, absolutely under the radar. But 6 days was coming up that year in Australia, and we had just come out with a brand new RMX.
What year? Sorry, I keep
So this is 92. This is still 92.
Okay.
And I was working, Dave Bertram was helping me with a Suzuki program, and he's going, man, we should try to get Rodney on to Australia. And I'm going, absolutely. So I'm going, Rodney, we want to send you. And he's like, all right. We finally work out the details. We send him to Australia. It's like I told you, he literally I think he finished 3rd overall. And back then, for an American to crack the top 10 was unheard of.
Yeah.
He almost wins the overall.
Malcolm was competitive back in the day, wasn't he?
To a gold medal. But as far as an overall,
not even close.
No.
Okay.
No, they were just light years.
So Rodney was way ahead of his time in terms of Americans.
It literally took till Sipes won it in, I think, 2016. It was the first American to ever win an overall. And Caselli back in 09 maybe had broken the top 3, but Rodney did it in 92.
Jeez.
So far ahead of the game. And then we were able to work out a deal. And I hired him, and he rode for me from 92 through 20. He stayed with Suzuki through 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. So he transitioned and became, I think, 13 national championships or something. Yeah.
He's a legend, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so you were doing what series out here? Because there wasn't works or any of that stuff. You were doing hare scrambles, hare and hound?
Yeah, so we did the National Enduro Series primarily, and then we also, when I got Rodney, we did the Hare Scramble Series.
Okay.
Okay, those were and then there was the Qualifier Series, which was the National Qualifier Series, which was a kind of a 6 days format.
Gotcha.
Those are the 3 series. But GNCC was just starting. And they were big, they're media-wise, they were big. They got it because the Coombs were behind them. They got a lot of push from that. But we didn't really do it other than the fact that we would go to the opener, which was around Bike Week. So you would have the Daytona 200 road race, you'd have the Daytona Supercross, and you'd have the Alligator Enduro and the opening of the GNCC. Those were the 4 big main events of back then. You remember Bike Week was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
That was the kickoff.
I did Palatka one year. It's the only GNCC I ever did. And
Yeah, Was it a rain one, a mud one?
Some.
Yeah, okay.
But it's sand, so it was more like I'd never raced nothing like I'd ever seen. And those palmetto routes.
Yeah, rip your feet off.
Holy shit.
And it's nothing like any other GNCC.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's nothing like. But it's gnarly. But we were winning everything. We were doing the enduros, doing great in that. Rodney was winning the Hare Scrambles, but I would go to an enduro and there would be like 40 pickup trucks. And our box van and an easy up. And I'm like, it's bitching. I get it. But I kind of came from that moto background. I'm like, there's got to be something bigger than this. There's got to be something. So then we went to the first GNCC, and that's when Big Dave was running. And I'm like, well, now there's 1,000 people here. And there wasn't a factory presence, but there was some. There was a couple of box vans. I think like Plessinger was in a box van and Scott Summers. And I'm like, okay, well, this is better. This makes sense, right? And so we kept doing the Hare Scrambles, and I started talking with Big Dave, and he's like, yeah, you got to come do the GNCCs, bring your boys in. And I loved Big Dave.
He was great.
I love that guy. And eventually he told me, we're winning the Hare Scrambles, and that's important to Suzuki. It's a big AMA championship. And the races are on Sundays. And they conflict with some of your races. He goes, we'll move our dates just to get you there. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, Mike, he goes, it's so important to have you there because one thing I was good at was, and a lot of it was because it came from the magazine, was pushing the exposure of the team. I knew, and I think because Summers did a great job by himself, but nobody else would push these guys. And my goal was like, God, they're all heroes. If people just knew about it, if I could get the word out, So I would I would call Tom. I go, Tom, I want to do something with Rodney in the magazine. He goes, whatever you want to do, Mike, do it. Write it up. And I would write the whole thing up. I would do it. But I would do 10 how-tos, how to rides, how to do logs, how to do hills, how to do ruts, an inside Rodney Smith, Suzuki, whatever it was. I was constantly shoving the magazine with stuff on the team. And slowly it was building. These guys were getting notoriety. People were starting to know who Rodney and these guys were. And Coombs, meanwhile, the GNCC, the numbers are fantastic back there. And I think Dave saw that the exposure I was getting to Suzuki guys. And he's like, Mike, we need you in this series. So eventually we got together where we switched to the GNCCs. We did that in the Hare Scrambles, and then eventually I pulled everything and just went GNCC only. And
that was what was great about Dave Coombs is he, I don't think you'd get a series to say that now.
No way.
They would be like, no, you work your crap out to fit our schedule.
Absolutely.
He was like, all right, you know what? We want to include you, so we'll figure it out. We'll move stuff.
And he saw a big picture. He was so good at, because I remember, he was sick at the time, and I didn't know. It's right before he passed, and we were racing in New Jersey. And he goes, Mike, it was the day before. He goes, get on a bike. He goes, let's go for a ride. I go, okay. And we take off, and we ride, and we go up to the top of a hill, and we're overlooking the pits, and it's just thousands of cars and trucks. And now I don't think I had a semi yet, but we had 4 box vans in a row and easy ups. And I mean, it was now legit.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is the footprint I'd kind of been seeing. And maybe it was motocross 20 years ago, but it was starting to look like that. And Dave goes, Mike, he goes, look at this. And I'm going, yeah, it's pretty amazing. He goes, this is off-road. He goes, don't let this get screwed up. I'll never forget. And because I didn't know he was sick at the time. I'm like, okay, why are you being so serious?
Why are you telling me that? All right.
But he saw that. He saw that vision. So, and he was right. It just exploded.
You know, I still feel like off-road, we're still, fighting that battle for them. There's stars there that people don't even know about. Stu Baylor,
Unbelievable.
if he had some, never mind his riding, he's a character, dude. That guy needs his own TV show.
Talk about no filter. Yeah.
I love him, you know, and I don't know him. I've never met him, but just, at least now with social media, if you know to follow a guy, you know who to look for, you can get to know him a little bit. I mean, he's great, but like none of the mainstream media will even touch it. It's the weirdest thing to me, and it's hard for us to cover that being out here.
Right.
But I think that's an issue, man, like that off-road still faces is just, you got to, like you were trying to do, get these riders in front of people and go, look at this dude.
I could get him so far. I mean, they brought TV in but it's funny, David, because I did both, because I did off-road and I did motocross, supercross, there is a dynamic with supercross and motocross. And it's like, and I remember it was like, it's so unfair. Those guys get paid. The supercross guys get so much money and they're fucking prima donnas and they, and the off-road guys work their butts off. And it's like, yeah, but there is a pressure with supercross and motocross that does not exist in off-road. There's a environment of intensity that does not transfer over.
Yeah.
And I would never have known that until I sat in the seat on the other side. And there's a reason you guys got paid what you did. There's a reason. It's hard to say because it's not like when Rodney won a GNCC, it's like he wasn't giving everything he got and taking huge chances. Of course he was. But there's something about the intensity of having to do a supercross 17 in a row and practice during the week and hit your marks and not get hurt and deal with the media push and the crush of all that. There's something that comes with that, and the fact that there's so much money invested to support the racing. If you're a racer, you feel that pressure because you're getting paid a lot of money. That team's huge. Everything's money, and that drives the stress level through the roof. And off-road is immune to that. It's, I brought in semis, we brought in TV. It was still fun. Yeah. It was still, you went
a different vibe.
Yeah, you went to the dinner after the race with the guy that you raced against. Yeah. Supercross is just cutthroat, and it's driven by pressure and money.
And there is an unspoken pressure. The riders feel it. There's just an expectation like, hey, you made it to this team. You need to win. Yeah. You need to be on the podium at a minimum. Yeah. Right. That you're right. It's not there. Off-road is definitely a little more relaxed. There's probably more risk. Yeah. In Supercross, a mistake, as you can see,
it's way bigger.
It's constantly injuries, right? Yeah. And then I would say rolling into that stadium and getting under, dropping into your start gate, surrounded by 50,000 people.
There's nothing compared, and it's
pretty tough to compare. But that said, when I did the GNCC in Palatka, I got stuck in a hole. It took me about 10 minutes to get out of. Another story for another time. But I was being lapped by the leaders, and I think it was Shane Watts, Rhino. Anyway, whoever the leaders were, they were coming through in a pack. Maybe it was Kudrowski. 04, 05 was he running for you?
Probably
was Kudrowski. Yeah. And they were coming by and went, okay, I'm going to jump on behind these guys and just follow them in.
Yeah, let them tow me.
I'm going to see what these guys got. Dude, two corners, I couldn't even see them. Yeah. I was like, what's going on here?
What happened?
I mean, they go so fast. And this is 4 hours in or 3.5 in.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Are they 4 hours or 3?
They're 3.
Okay, so this was 2.5 hours in.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get a whole new appreciation for off-road guys. And
I've always tried to figure it out, what caused that. Because I would, people would say it's unfair, it's unbalanced. I go, it is, but it's not. And if you see the swagger of a Supercross kid walking into a stadium, with his
fur coat,
and his man friend carrying his bag and stuff, and you're kind of, it's easy to make fun of him, but I think to myself, I go, the pressure is so intense for that kid that people don't see. And the fact that, people say, well, wow, the GNCC is awesome. I can just come under the tent and just talk to somebody. I go, yeah, exactly. And because of that, that pressure balloon is not there.
Yeah.
You can come in and just get on the guy's bike and twist the throttle. Yeah. Supercross, you wouldn't even go near it, right? But that's that invisible difference between the two sports.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I get all the emails all the time anytime a rider complains about being kind of burned out from the grind or whatever. I always get messages or emails. Oh, this kid, he doesn't know what hard work is. I get up to it. I go work at this thing and I dig ditches, right? And I'm like, that's hard work. I get it.
Sure.
There's stuff about this being a supercross, motocross guy you'll never know. Never. You'll never know that pressure. Yeah. You'll never know getting up and getting on a plane every freaking weekend, living in a hotel. It sucks.
Yeah. And I pointed that out to people too. It's okay, you're a plumber. It's a hard job, man. It's gnarly. You're crawling under sinks. It sucks. Yeah. But when you're sick, you could probably call in. Well, yeah, So when you got a sore throat, you can probably call in that day and get it. Yeah, you probably can. Yeah. So blown knee, you could probably say, yeah, I need a couple of weeks off. I tweak my knee. Yeah, you could probably do that. I go, that athlete, that supercross athlete, especially the guys that have made it, you guys that made it to that factory level, there is no days off. There is no, I got a sore throat. There is no, you know what, I just don't feel it today. And any other job in the world, that office worker, it's like, that office worker can go to work, get behind that computer screen and fake it all day long. All day long, be playing on the keys, and boss will walk by and going, right on, and never accomplish a thing.
Playing solitaire.
Yeah, that supercross kid can't fake it.
Yeah.
You have to perform. And the pressure of having to perform, of not having that escape valve, is something that people don't see. It's that invisible. It's like you have no choice. They're rock stars. They have to perform.
Yep.
They have to.
And to your point, like even when you are deathly ill, you got the flu and you've got to stay in bed as a racer, you're thinking like, dude, all my competitors are out training. Yep. They're all right. Like there's still pressure on you to get better and get going.
Yep.
And now you got to make up the time you just lost.
Yep.
It's hard to explain that to people. So it's good to hear you verbalize that. I want to talk about one more thing, is West Coast off-road. When we started Whiskey Throttle Media, I said, man, I want to really see if we can partner with some of these West Coast off-road. The Works and the NGPC at the time seems like Works is kind of fizzling a little bit. NGPC is gathering some steam. I said, let's go partner with these guys, and we'll just be a media partner. Just give us access, and we'll come in and make, highlight the racing, the riders, the bikes. And man, because, GNCC is tough for us. Just everything's back east. And I don't get it's so hard to work with them.
Yeah.
There was no reciprocity with the organizers. Every race is a different club. So you're like, well, who am I dealing with? And this is different. And we say, hey, we'd really like to do this. It'd be good for you guys. It'd be good for and they're like, they're just doing their thing.
Some see the vision, some don't. Yeah.
And we eventually just said, all right,
too much work.
We'll talk to the guys when we get a chance, or do features on bikes and riders in that series. But I'm not gonna grind to try to help you grow off-road racing on the West Coast if you don't even see it. You're not even interested in partnering with us.
Right.
It was super disappointing. And so we're looking at like the West Coast Hare Scramble series, which has got a really cool promoter and awesome series. A lot of it's up northwest, but they just had one down here, Cheney Ranch.
Right.
Enduro Cross. We're working with those guys. We're going to go to all those rounds this year. Why is this so stinking hard on the West Coast to, what's the difference? Like, do we need an organizer like MX Sports does with GNCC out here to run one whole series? Is it the fraction?
That's exactly.
Is that the problem?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the fragmented groups like the Hare and or the Hare Scrambles, that's exactly it. One guy gets it and the other guy doesn't. And when we went to the GNCC, I dealt directly with Dave Coombs, or after Dave, it was with Kerry Joe or Jeff Russell. Our marketing is going to go here. I'm bringing the race teams here. We need practice facilities, whatever it was. I'm just dealing with one guy, and that's why it worked. When the Works started out here, I wanted a West Coast series so bad that was legit, and because we were having the same problems you guys are talking about right now, I'm like, God, I wish just something was out here. And then the work started, and it was started by Dave Hamill, Danny's brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Dave started it, and he goes, yeah, we're going to start up a series. And he came and met with all the OEMs, and I said, you know what I would do? Because we don't have the logistics of the East. We don't have private, 300 acres to work with, or 500 acres, whatever it was. Everything's much smaller here. You got to kind of tie it into more of a smaller loop, a 6-minute loop, instead of a 30-minute, 25-minute loop. I go, and West Coast guys are all moto heads. Throw motocross in there. People love jumping.
Yeah.
They love to watch speed, right? In the woods, as cool as the GNCC is, and you saw it following those guys, it's hard to equate a guy jamming through tight trees in second gear with a guy hitting, a step up in fourth gear. It's like, that's way more rad. So we kind of pitched that with Hamill, and he turned it into that original work series. It was always almost always based on with a motocross track, and then a 6 or 7 minute loop around it.
Yeah.
And I said, if you do this, I'll come in full on, factory. I'll bring a full effort. And he's like, okay. So at the time, I had built 2 teams, and I pitched it to Suzuki. And back then, we had, again, a good president that was into racing. I said, look, and backtrack real quick. The DRZ had just come out, which was Suzuki's first kind of legit 4-stroke before the RMZ. And Suzuki came to me, the engineers came to me, and they go, hey, can you race this thing? And I'm looking at them like, no, it's like a dual sport bike.
Yeah.
They're like, well, really? And I'm like, well, let me look at it. And I kind of thinking, we could take a lot of weight off, and it's a 4-stroke. I go, maybe. And I went and met with Yosh. That's when I first got with Yosh, and they're going, yeah, we'll build a motor. And I met with Showa, and I was tight with them, and they go, yeah, we can give you kind of kick down suspension from the motocross team. And I go, okay. And so I tell Suzuki, I go, yeah, I think I can race it. So we tried it 1 year. The first year I hired Kudrowski, we tried it in GNCC, and the thing was a tank. It was like riding this, table.
Desk.
Yeah. And through the tight trails, GNCC, the thing, and Mike's getting it stuck, and it's overheating, and he's getting and he wasn't an East Coast guy, so it wasn't the best plan. So meanwhile, the works thing is we're meeting, and it's gonna happen. And I go, okay, I'll bring Kudrowski, full on effort, full factory effort, and I'll bring Smith, and I still had Steve Hatch, and I split up the team. We had a 3-man. Those 3 would race RM 250 2-strokes in the GNCC, and all 3 of them would race DRZ 4-strokes in the works. And I built 2 separate programs, and it was insane what I was doing, because I don't even know how I pulled it off to this day, because my budget didn't change. They go, if you can figure it out, go ahead and do it. And I'm like, I got with different sponsors like Dunlop. I go, if you guys can kick in some money, and that's when I started selling the team, started selling real estate on the bike, and I figured all that out, and I developed a team. In the first 2 years of the works, we took that DRZ. Yosh built a badass, like it was a stroke 430 motor. The thing was so sweet, like it would rev to the moon, but it was real rideable. I had work suspension on it, like old, might have been conventional. It might have been the conventional shows that McGrath used, I think.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah, those. And
which worked great outdoors.
They were unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then we took as much weight as we could, and I built special plastic, and I put Kudrowski on that thing, and we won the first 2 years of the Work Series on a DRZ. And it was like, to this day, looking back at it, if people saw pictures of that thing, it's gigantic.
Gosh, I want to go back and look now. I'll have to find some photos.
You'll be blown away when you see how big that motorcycle is.
Well, I was just looking at the DOZ because they just relaunched it.
Yeah.
And it's really just the same bike with new plastics and stuff. But great bike. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
But it's not a race bike.
It's a dual sport bike.
Yeah, it's a dual sport bike.
Even in that is a fluffy dual sport. But, we were racing. Ty Davis at the time was a full shredder. I mean, he was unbelievable. And he was on a KX 250 2-stroke, and we beat him.
Wow.
2 years in a row. That's, to me, it's of all the things I've done as a manager, that was one of the highest marks we ever pulled off.
I remember Kudrowski riding a 4-stroke, but for some reason I thought it was a RMZ.
Yeah. He did later. He raced it later, but he started on the DRZ.
Wow.
And a funny story there, I would always have the motocross guy because I was always tight with the motocross team, and we were all under the same roof. And Albie one year he was still racing motocross. I think it was his last year, and he goes, "Hey, I want to come do an off-road race." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Yeah, I want to do one." And I go, and he goes, "I want to race one of those trick 4-strokes you got." And I go, "Okay." I go, "Well, Elsinore's coming up." And he goes, I go, "It'd be good for you. It's not real hard. It's not real technical. It's high speed. There's a lot of pavement, you know."
Elsinore Grand Prix?
The Elsinore
Okay.
GP, yeah. And because when GOAT relaunched that, we won that the first 2 years too. I brought the DRZ program in, and we just crushed it.
Okay.
And so Albie comes out. We went to Glen Helen. I go, "We'll go test with you for one day," and we go riding, and he's riding it, and he's like, "Yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It's pretty fun." And he goes, "How's my pace?" I go, "Well, I mean, it looks okay. We're Glen Helen. We're at the track." I go, "You look okay." And we go to Elsinore, and we take off, and he's racing the pro class. And Shane Watts won it that year, and I think he was on a 480 KTM 4-stroke or some big KTM 4-stroke. And Watts lapped Albie. And Albie never crashed. Nothing ever went wrong, but the speed difference was so unbelievable. Yeah. And Albie comes after the race. He goes, "Hey, man, what was with Watts? Why was he so far back?" I go, "Dude, he was lapping you." He was going, and he looked at Kedrowski. He goes, "You guys don't get paid enough."
Yeah.
And that was the last
That's
time.
Perfect.
It was.
Oh, I love Albie.
Yeah.
What another great guy. They just don't get enough credit. That's for sure. They're amazing.
But fun-wise, Kedrowski, he had more fun racing off-road than he ever did in moto.
Well, I say some of my favorite years of racing was supermoto, and it had a very similar vibe. Like we battled hard, and then afterwards we'd all barbecue in the pits, or we'd go to dinner together.
But
everyone in the pits.
Intense racing. Yeah.
But friendship, like maybe early moto.
Yep.
Maybe
exactly.
70s moto.
I
probably
think
like
so.
that.
Yeah.
And it didn't help. Hurt that I was teammates with Wardy, like my childhood hero.
Yeah.
I've got memories of me in the transporter. We're pulling our gear on, and I'm looking over, going, "I'm teammates with Jeff Ward." Like, myself. Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, it was crazy. Okay, so where the hell are we? Kind of got lost in conversation there. Who impressed you the most? I want to ask you about Scott Summers. This is a guy I've been wanting to have on here forever. People that don't know the name, this was the original 4-stroke guy. What was it? A Honda
600.
600. That's right.
Yeah. XR 600.
XR 600. This dude, and you know this ad, I'm sure, where I think it was an ad or picture. He's holding the bike up. This guy was, at least, again, I've never even met him, but he just looked like this big ox.
He was.
And he ride the shit out of that bike.
Yeah.
And he won title after title. He was kind of the guy for a long time.
6 or 7, I think, Harris Scrambles and GNCCs. Him and AP's dad, Scott Plessinger, they would battle.
Yeah.
But Summers was a kid from Kentucky, super hardworking. And he rode that. He had elbows down, and he'd get on that thing. And I remember we were racing in Idaho, and I was racing with Rossler, and we were there at a qualifier. And Summers won the first day. It was a 2-day event, and he was winning all the special tests. And I'm like, "Larry, what the hell?" No, I'm sorry. We were back east. We were at Loretta's, maybe. That's where it was. And he's beating Larry every test. And I'm like, "Larry, what's the deal, man? You're Larry Rossler. You can ride anything." He goes, "Mike," he goes, "those small little pines that you and I are going, rut, 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 rut." He goes, he just tucks behind those handlebars and those big handguards and just mows straight through them. He goes, he makes a straightaway. I'm like, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I've never seen anything like it." And
just plowing his own
Summers
trail.
was so strong, he could do that. And he was super talented. He was super fast. There was a GNCC, and I think it was Jeff Russell's track, and it had I think it was 100-foot table. Right.
Okay. And
we're walking the course. GNCC, you can walk the day before, and there was a motocross track, and then you went into the woods. And this table, it was just came out of right-hander, and just hit this takeoff, and it was 100-foot plateau, downside the other side. And we're walking, and we're looking. I'm going, "Man, that thing's big." I go, "Rodney, you going to do this?" He's like, "Shit, I don't know." He goes, "I don't need to do it. It's just 100." And, it's there's no practice. You don't go in the morning and size it up and jump halfway a couple of times. You hit it in the race or you don't hit it. And the race starts and they come around, and Freddie Andrews was Team Green, who was Factory Cowie then. Summers is behind him. They come up to it and they're hauling ass. And I'm going, I guess they're just going to scrub at the last second and throw it down there. And Andrews hits it and hucks this thing. And I'm like, holy shit. Summers does it behind him on the XR and just greases the downside. I'm like, every lap the guy jumped it.
Well, Fred had at least Supercross background.
Fred was a full Supercrosser.
Yeah.
Summers is up in the air, elbows down on this giant tank. I'm like, okay, you have my respect. Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to get him on this show somehow. I just, when you talk off-road, I mean, he's a Mount Rushmore, right? This guy.
And Fred Bramlett was his manager / mechanic media guy. That guy was a marketing genius. What those two did was unbelievable, because you would think if you read the magazine stories or whatever they generated media-wise, you would go, well, clearly Honda's paying them like $5 million and they have an unlimited budget. They were doing everything out of a garage.
Oh, is that right?
Bramlett could make it look so good. And he later went on to, he was with LaRocco through the Jack in the Box era. That was all Fred Bramlett. But
I remember him working with Brandon Jessamine.
Absolutely.
That was another one of his guys.
Yeah. He media-wise, that guy was a smart cookie.
Huh.
He was great, yeah.
Whatever happened to him?
You know what? He retired. I talked to him a couple of years ago. He was doing well, but he had retired.
And then you mentioned Joe Colombero. He was really big in the sport in that era. I remember he connected. I used to be sponsored by Moto Brew. Greg Prim ran that. Right. And he was getting beer to Joey from Friends. What's his name? LeBlanc.
Yeah.
And I had to tell the story. I was at the MotoGP in Laguna. I'm out with Emig, of all people.
Right.
Bad idea. We'd had a few bowls of loudmouth soup.
There you go.
And I bump into this Matt LeBlanc, right? And we had sent him this beer, and I was kind of an ambassador for him. And so someone introduces me to him, and I'm, like I said, half lit, and I'm trying to say, hey, man, we got you some beer from, and I couldn't remember Prim's name. I couldn't remember the name of the beer. I'm all, anyway, yeah, cool, man, nice to meet you. I just walked off. It was the most embarrassing thing that ever had happened to me. And he's looking at me like, you're an idiot. Yeah. Anyway, what's Colombero up to?
Joey's retired. He works with Don Emdy with Trailblazers, I believe it is.
Right.
Yeah, he does that. So,
okay. Yeah. That's coming up here not too long. I have to go check it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we kind of covered your off-road career, and there's a big switch over to Supercross, Motocross here. We're going to get into it. This is your Troy Lee Designs Timeout. Stick around. We'll be back to cover the rest of Mike Webb's career. Don't miss it.
Dunlop. There is a reason every AMA championship in the past decade was won on Dunlop tires. They are the best. Choose the best performing tire and a brand that has never wavered in their support of our sport. Choose Dunlop. Pro Circuit. Pro Circuit products are designed with one goal in mind: winning. Through passion and hard work, Pro Circuit has operated the most successful 250 team in the history of the sport. They use that same formula when developing exhaust, engine, and suspension parts for every brand. When only the highest level of performance is acceptable, trust Pro Circuit.
Seat Concepts prides themselves in offering the best seat foam and cover products available for off-road, moto, dual sport, adventure, quad, and street motorcycles, all at affordable prices. So whether you're looking for better performance or more comfort, choose a superior American-made product from Seat Concepts.
Something from nothing. That's what Nihilo Concepts is about. It starts with a spark, an idea, a concept, which leads to a design, and finishes with engineered excellence with the highest quality products created with durability in mind. All our products are made in the USA at our state-of-the-art facility in Stewart, Florida. Whether you are a weekend warrior, ride for fun, or at the highest level of competition, Nihilo Concepts offers innovative titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber parts for your dirt bike. We offer a wide variety of products that you can customize to your liking. Browse our site for foot pegs, brake tips, engine components, specialty tools, frame grip tape, lever grips, carbon fiber components, motor stands, our secondary on-switch, plus much more. Head to NihiloConcepts.com and see for yourself why factory teams like Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, Troy Lee Designs Gas, Orange Brigade, Club MX, KLM Gas, and some of the fastest riders in the world choose Nihilo Concepts.
All right, folks, welcome back. That was your Troy Lee Designs Time Out. If you haven't been over to TLD lately, go check them out. The SE5 line of helmets is absolutely unrivaled when it comes to speed and style. Troy can make a beer can look fast. Very, very talented group of individuals over there. We're stoked to have them on board. So check out TroyLeeDesigns.com. Okay, Mike, so let's talk about your transition over to Supercross and Motocross. DeCoster, as I understood it, and you know more backstory than I do, I just was watching from the outside, but it seemed like in 2008 when the housing economy crashed, that was when kind of things started. That was when Suzuki really pulled back. It felt like to me. And maybe it was before that, but I think before that, they had Ricky killing it and Reed came over and won a title for him, and they seemed all in. DeCoster was there, they were really doing incredible things. 2008 happens, and Roger leaves for KTM. And I think it was an intersection of KTM wanting to really make a push over here. They I remember them saying, we want to build an Orange Village. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it's an odd thing to say. But they really did it. They really actually followed through on all that.
Yeah.
So tell me how that happened where, because you and Roger were working for Suzuki together. You're off-road side, he's Supercross, Motocross. So I know you guys were close.
Right.
What the heck happened there where he left, and how did that go down?
Well, I think you're right. I think it was when the housing crisis of that era. And it's funny because before then, it was the golden years. I want to say at Suzuki. I remember at one dealer show, so when Mel Harris was the American president, they were going to break 200,000 in sales, and that's a lot of motorcycles.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the whole industry by far today combined would be that much, but that's what sales numbers were going to be that year, and that's they had, I forget what the racing budget was when they had Ricky, Mladen, and Ben Spies all in the same year, and those guys won everything. It was millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, just between salary and bonuses
for those three. Yeah, it was unbelievable. But those were the glory years, money wise, sales wise. And then the housing hit, that whole debacle with the predatory loans and all that, and immediately things started tightening up. And I remember when it happened. It's funny because when things were during the glory years, I had hired Rhino, and I paid him, I forget what I paid him, but part of the deal was he goes, I can't get any more money than that. I'm going, right, you're going to do like 10 races. It's good money, right? Yeah. I go, I'll make sure, you get enough bikes. And the RMZ had just come out, or the year before it come out. And part of his deal, I hired him and gave him 10 RMZs.
Jeez.
And I'll never forget Hoodie, who you guys did a great show with him, by the way. Hoodie built them all and lined them all up in Rhino's shop, and he sent me a picture or something. He goes, how's this look? And I'm like, it looks pretty damn good. But that was his contract. 10 brand new RMZs. He raced, I think, 5 of them and then sold the other 5. But,
jeez. But
literally, I could get away with anything. I mean, off-road wise.
Right.
If Roger was, paying what the numbers I now hear Ricky was getting, which are pretty insane. But that all immediately, quickly stopped. And my budget, all of a sudden, I think it was 4 or 5 guys. I had 3 guys back east, 2 guys out here, maybe 3 and 3. I had gone to a semi. I bought Mitch's old semi, and that took a lot of convincing. Suzuki's like, what? I go, well, think about it. 3 box vans and registrations, insurance on separate vehicles. I can keep everything under one roof. And I was always thinking motocross. It always made sense to me, the racing structure of it. So we had gone to a semi, but then I had to get a rig for out here. So I had like a 5th wheel rig out here for the works. And that economy crashed. And then Suzuki's like, yeah, you're down to 2 riders. I'm like, whoa, that's when it really started changing. So
2 riders total?
2 riders total.
So you just had 1 on each?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, whoa, everything's changed quite a bit. But we're still racing. It was okay. Yeah. And I'd been through lean times before with him. But
what was Rhino's deal with you? Was it works?
It was works only.
Okay.
And God, if I could have kept, which is could have, should have, but if he could have kept like him corralled, his speed was so unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about bringing motocross speed again, and he was still really, really fast back then. But I couldn't contain the tornado.
That's rope in the wind, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the meantime, I was tight with Roger. Roger and I'd grown up. He was my total hero when he first came to Suzuki. I remember I went out to lunch with him, and he's like, "Hey, they want me to come back and run the race team. What do you think?" And I'm like, "It's not going to be like Honda." Okay, and this is back when, I don't know if you remember this, at Brea. Do you remember what the race shop was at Brea? Well, that little room in the far back.
It was rinky dink.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a little bigger than this.
I remember when I went when Pat Alexander it was 1991, and I got 2 bikes and parts. It was very little, but I went to pick my bikes up, and I'm thinking, I'm going to Factory Suzuki.
The Palace.
It's gonna be this is gonna be glorious, and I'm like, this is it, huh? Like. My garage is nicer than this.
Yeah, when do I go to the race shop?
Yeah.
That's how it was. But I told Roger, I go, it's not going to be like Honda, and but he built it to what it was, and he did a great job, and we were really close. We had a couple of run-ins, but not too bad. But he told me I would go out to lunch about once a week with them, and meanwhile they had moved over to Yosh, so Suzuki had moved because we needed a legit race department, and they couldn't do it at Brea, so they worked out the deal with Yosh. And one day I went out to lunch with him and I think Ian, and Roger's like, "Oh man, it's getting weird over there." I'm going, "Yeah, things have tightened up a lot. They really have." He goes, "Yeah, it's weird. It's like," and very importantly, Mel Harris had left. So Mel Harris was there during Roger's glory years. Mel was the guy that was making sure that money came through, and he
was a racing fan.
He loved racing.
Yeah.
He loved being in the presence of racers. And not to say it in a derogatory way, but he loved being surrounded by heroes.
Yeah.
And he loved that part, which was great for racing.
Yeah.
Who cares? As long as I get my budget.
Whatever your intentions are,
I love
ulterior motives.
Take a picture with you. No problem.
Yeah.
So he left. Suzuki actually booted him out, and the new guy comes in, and Roger's trying to get his deal, and every year Roger signed, I think, a 2-year deal for the whole time he was at Suzuki, and and you know this from management, you need to have more than 1 year. You're looking at talent 5 years down the road. You're looking at the entire infrastructure, what different series are blossoming or fading, whatever it is. You're looking at this giant landscape, and it's a lot bigger than 1 year down the road. So Roger would go in for a 2-year deal, and they're going, no. And this was after Dungey won everything as a rookie.
Yeah, 2010?
So I want to say 10 or 9 maybe.
2009, yeah.
I think it was
right,
9.
Yeah.
So Dunge wins everything. And unexpectedly wins everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and it kind of caught Suzuki out because he had an escalated bonus program that paid beautifully.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
I suppose you're right.
So, and all this is hitting the same time that the economy's crashing and sales are going in the toilet. So Suzuki, like all the manufacturers looked at it and went, whoa, things have slowed up, right? It's kind of like KTM caught with the COVID, backlash.
Yeah.
Honda, Yamaha, Cowie, everyone went, whoa, let's grab the brake a little, kind of see what's going on. Suzuki absolutely slammed on the brakes, freaked out, jumped off the cliff.
Off the back of the bike.
It's like, what the hell? Yeah, just ghost road. And Roger told me, he goes, they won't give me a 2-year deal. I'm like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. You just won everything.
Yeah.
Everything you can win at the highest level.
With a rookie.
With a rookie, you just won everything. He goes,
and him even picking Dungey was like...
Yeah, I want to say a lot of that was cold grass.
Was it?
Absolutely.
Well,
and
they all looked good because when they picked him, I'm like, Ryan Dungey, really?
But Cole was really instrumental in that, and I don't think he gets near the credit for it.
Ah.
But Roger also is smart enough to see it. But he goes, they want to offer me only a 1-year deal. I'm like, that's unbelievable. I remember leaving going, that's just nuts. I know things are tight, but they're not that tight. And then the rumor starts getting out now, and this must have been right at the start of the internet. I think it was.
Okay.
So the rumor starts getting out that Coster's he's talking to KTM. So we go out to lunch again. It's a week later, and I'm going, dude, and I go, rumors, you're talking to KTM? He goes, I am. I'm like, no shit. And he goes, yeah. I go, wow. He goes, Mike, they won't offer me more than 1 year. I got to have more than 1 year. He goes, I deserve more than 1 year. I go, absolutely. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't know what to do. So eventually goes down. He goes with KTM. They come back and offer him the program he wanted. Suzuki freaks out. He goes to KTM. I'll never forget. We're in the big meeting room, and what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? They're all running around with their chickens with their head cut off. I'm like, friggin' idiots. He asked for a 2-year program, and he goes, we'll give it to him now. Call him up, and we'll offer it to him now. And I go, he's gonna laugh at you. He's gonna absolutely laugh at you, and he did. So all this is happening, and meanwhile, we had won everything we could in off-road. I'd done everything I could. I'd taken it to places that I thought would be beneficial for the riders and for the programs, and it was. We established the West and the GNCCs. We had won multiple championships, and I'd kind of run out of things to do. We could, and I was down to just a couple of riders. I had Strang in the East, who was killing it. He was the young kid then, and I forget who I had out West. Maybe Nathan Woods or something. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to reinvent myself again. You got to keep that passion going. Yeah. It's got to keep that carrot. And Roger was leaving, and somebody called him. It might have been Tetherton, might have been Buzz. Somebody called me, and they go, hey, would you be interested in the motocross? And it's funny because a couple of years before, during the good years, Roger called me into his office once in motocross, and he goes, what do you think about running the lights team? And I'm going, well, maybe. And I go, what are we talking? And he goes, well, it's just it's a lateral position for you. You just move over and start. I go, you kidding? Twice the travel? Twice the if the zeros don't come with it, there's no friggin' way. And he goes, oh, okay. And so we let it go. So fast forward, I think Buzz called me, or it might have been.
Is Buzzard still there?
Buzz was still there, which is a whole.
He was team manager back in what, like
stories.
90?
Yeah.
90?
Yeah, I want to say 90.
Way back.
Yeah, like after Pat, because Pat Alexander was factory mechanic or factory manager, and then Buzz kind of ran it secretly, hiddenly, and then RD came in. But Buzz or Lapuznek, Rod Lapuznek was now the big American, and he's now at Triumph. He runs Triumph, so he's a great guy. But they go, hey, what do you think about coming over and running motocross? I'm like, what are you, nuts? After what you guys just did to Roger? I go, you look terrible. You look absolutely stupid. They go, well, think about it. I'm going, think about what? So they go, just come in for a meeting. And I go, okay. So I go in for the meeting, and they're going, yeah, so you got Dungey. We just won the championship. I go, I got a kid that can't get out of here fast enough. He cannot get out of his. He was
trying to get out, right?
He's trying to get out of his contract so friggin' hard. I go, that's my big carrot. I get Dungey. He goes, wow. He goes, yeah, but it's a motocross team, and we're going racing. You have full factory support, 100% support from Japan. They knew, because I'd done R&D and production testing for years, so I knew all the engineers. And I remember coming home talking to my wife, and I'm like, well, there is this part of me that it's the highest level.
It's the pinnacle of off-road.
It is, and there is a part of me that wants that, and it's where I came from as that little kid, way back in the day. So I thought about it. I went in for a meeting, and so I threw out this number. I go, well, this is what it's going to take, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, shit. I go, should ask for more, but I ended up. I go, okay, I guess I'll do it, and I did, and there was half of me saying I wish I never would have done it, but looking back now with the luxury of time, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad everything that came out of it. It's funny, as traumatic and gnarly as stuff is at the time, with the luxury of time, you look back at it in such a different way.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's okay. Those highs and lows it's just like life. It's all right. It's okay.
It's part of your story.
It's part of the story. Absolutely.
But that was a difficult year. Nothing your fault, but man,
no,
tough year for you.
Yeah, and it was
because you, like you said earlier, you stepped into an unwinnable situation.
Yeah, and I knew Dungey as a little kid when he was just a lights rider, and I was so impressed with him as a human. I thought his parents had done a really good job raising him, super polite, and I wasn't the spoiled brat SoCal little shit, and I liked all that. But like you and I talked about, I was so understanding of where he was coming from. I think he was 17 or 18 at the time, maybe. And I'm thinking, yeah, I fully get it. You guys promised him the world. You wrapped him up and protected him in the security blanket of Roger and Ian, and everything was taken care of, and he did everything he said he would, and you guys just absolutely ripped the rug out from underneath him. Just coldly ripped that Band-Aid right off.
Because Ian went with Roger, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, both guys were gone, and Ian is now running things at KTM. Roger's kind of on, I don't know, what do you
I think
say?
he's still running things.
You're probably
but I could just see that with Dunge. In the very first meeting, it was so funny because, do you remember Aki Goto?
I do remember the name.
Okay, so Aki had been in racing forever. He had been at Suzuki forever. Aki is the guy. He was a genius fabricator. He was the guy that took a Honda three-wheeler and said, well, these things are death traps. They should put another wheel on it. So he grafted another wheel onto a Honda three-wheeler, made the first four-wheeler, sent it to Japan. Japan said, yeah, let's make a production version, built it. That became the Quad Runner, which started the entire quad industry. That was Aki Goto, was the guy that did that.
Jeez.
I think Suzuki gave him a trophy. I don't know how many units they sold, but I think he got a trophy, like a plaque. But
a little plastic one.
Yeah, here you go, thanks. But we have a meeting. It's the very first team meeting. They bring me in, they introduce me, and Dunge is he's just staring at the ground. He's pissed.
Really?
And it was a dark, gloomy day. It was in December, I think, or November maybe, and we were going to start Supercross testing, and it's raining like crazy. It was a
El Nino year.
El Nino year. and everything's flooded out, right? And we're all meeting in the race shop. We're going to go test, and everything's underwater. And Aki comes in freaking out. Just, Mike, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the rain? I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to do shit. I go, it's raining. We're canceling today. He goes, you got to do something. Go find a track in the desert. I'm going, Aki, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You want to get me, I'll take these 50 people and go find a supercross track in the desert? And I'm thinking at the time going, this doesn't look good. But
Day one at work is not going great.
One. So this is my support crew up above. So anyway, it goes from that. And then,
what does Ryan say? Like, does he have anything to say, or he's just kind of quiet?
He's just kind of sullen and bummed. He's just always bummed, you know. And the kid I knew from before was super happy-go-lucky kid, like he is now. Like the Ryan that I saw at Anaheim 1, you know. It's like we're talking about kids and life, and he just moved to Tennessee, and that guy was the kid I saw as a Lights kid. The one that I dealt with was a very pissed off
goth Dungy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Very angry Dungy.
Yeah.
So unfortunately it never stood a chance.
Yeah.
No matter what I did. And we gave it everything we could. I mean, I literally have never worked harder in my life with a rider or with a program to try to make it happen than I did with Dunge. And it didn't.
Yeah, you know, so let's get into that season a little bit. I guess, what was before we do that, what was your conversations with Roger when you took the position? Did you ever have a conversation with him?
Yeah. He goes, I heard, he said, I heard you're taking over. I go, yeah, I'm thinking about it. And he was supportive. He goes, you know what you're doing. And we kind of hit on Dunge is going to be a problem. And I go, yeah, I know. I see it. But he was real honest with me. We were real good about it.
So one thing about Roger, he won't sugarcoat anything.
No, he absolutely. And I think people don't like, you know, when he does some of his media stuff, that he's so gruff and he's such a prick. It's like, no, that's Roger. He's been that way his whole life. He just tells it like it is.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to get compliments out of him.
Impossible.
Yeah. It used to bother me when I rode for Suzuki, the 125 side, because he wouldn't come around much.
No.
If I won, he'd come over and shake my hand.
Yeah.
That was about it.
That was big.
That was big.
And,
you know, but I always wanted, like, hey, give me some advice. Help me.
Yeah.
You're Roger DeCoster.
Yeah. Tell me. Show me something.
And he's stingy with a lot of things. So, so let's talk about that season. This would be 2010, right? And as I mentioned, we kind of intersect that year. I'm working for TLD. I took over in 2009. We had a group of kids, and we did pretty well. We were top 5 a lot. We had all 4 guys in the main event pretty much every weekend. Nationals a little rougher, and then I brought Townley over in 2010. I was a big BT fan. I believed in him. He was looking for another chance after his injuries, and he delivered, man.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Great kid on a terrible bike. That Honda.
That was the bad year Honda.
The funny car they called it. It was just terrible, and he made the best of it, man. Thank you to Bones for a lot of his work getting that thing ready. But so you guys started out. Talk about that season for you guys. How did it start out?
Well, Supercross, I think the very first race, Ryan got T-boned by Trey. And in a left-hander, Ryan squared it up, came down early or something, and Trey hit him in the back, hit him in the sprocket, and derailed the chain. So I think we were running 4th or something, and he DNF'd the first. I want to say it's the first race. First race I think we got 2nd.
Okay.
And it was kind of okay. Everybody was kind of like, whew, like I remember me and Goose are like, okay, we didn't win it, but he's right there, he's fast, and I'm thinking, with all the stuff on this kid's shoulders and how bummed he is to still perform that good, it's like, you know, we got a chance at this. We can be okay. So we got a 2nd. The next race, he got hit by Trey, and he didn't crash or anything. He just hit the sprocket, bent the sprocket, chain came up. Kind of like what happened, I guess, with Kenny a couple weeks at Tampa. But, again, this is right when the internet was firing up. And we push the bike off, and the sprocket's bent, chain comes off. He's flipping out. The adrenaline's rushing.
What are you going to do, though? I mean, like, how do you...
You can't do anything. But you do something. But funny, because of the internet, this is when this little animal started up. Well, that never would have happened when Roger was there.
Yeah, I don't remember him derailing chain.
That started right then, and there's a million of those.
You should have had hats made.
I should have. We should have, absolutely. But I ended up redesigning the chain guide, actually. We looked at it.
But if the sprocket's bent, it doesn't matter what your chain guide does.
But we thought the chain guide was too short. We thought a longer one, kind of like an off-road one, would have kept it from derailing. It probably would have still come off anyway, or it might have helped protect the sprocket a little bit, carry the chain guide into the sprocket more.
Okay.
We didn't sit on our butts and go, oh, well. It's like, let's look at it. But the racing went like that. He was still fast. He was still really fast. The bike was exactly the same motorcycle. Exactly the same.
Same guy building it. Goose.
Same guy building. Same, I mean, new parts, but same spec. Exactly. Same motor spec. We would test, try all the stuff. He'd always go back to what he wanted. Like all racers, you just go for the comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, he just won on it. Why?
He just won everything.
Why are you going to change everything?
Why are you going to change
And Mike Gosler, one of the most accomplished mechanics ever, he was with Ricky through all his titles on a big bike.
Right.
You couldn't ask for a better mechanic.
And he was a great calming influence for Dunge. Goose was great, and Goose and I were really tight. We've known each other forever. We grew up in the Valley. We raced Mammoth together for years and years. It was really, and I would say, it's imperative you calm this kid down, Goose. He's not going to listen to me. You're that security blanket that he remembers from last year. It's so important that you got to be that guy for me. And Goose was great about that. But racing's racing. So he has the issue with the chain. I think he comes back the next race. He does pretty well. Then we get to Phoenix. And Phoenix, he was running up front, maybe leading, and I think Reedy and I forget who else. Reedy and maybe K-Dub, like just straight up catch him and pass him and beat him. And instead of winning or getting second, we get a fifth or something. And he snaps. Dunge just flips out. They just worked him. They set him up, inside outside passes, just beautiful racecraft. And he was racing behind, not ahead. And I could just see, like, God, he's making mistakes. The pressure's getting to him. And they straight up beat him. And after the race, he's flipping out. So I come back to the semi, and I'm with my engineer, my chassis engineer. No, he was my motor engineer, and his name was Yuzo, Japanese, and could speak a little bit of English, but funny guy. And very Japanese, very stoic, very quiet, very together, very intelligent man. We come back to the truck, and I can hear screaming in the truck. We come back to somebody, and nobody else is back yet. We're first one's back, and Dungy's already back. I get in the truck, and there's Ryan and his mom and dad are in the truck, and they're at each other's faces. They're 2 inches apart, just screaming at each other.
Mom and dad?
Mom and dad against Ryan. Actually, mom and Ryan, and dad's back over here. And I open the slider in the truck, and I walk in. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And they are just ripping each other apart. And Ryan's like, they don't respect me. They're passing me. I'm a piece of crap. And he goes, I don't have it. They're just blowing by me. And the mother's just screaming at him. Like she's 2 inches away. And I'm watching this going, and I'm going, lady, he just came off the track. His adrenaline is through the roof. Leave him alone. Give him 5 minutes to calm down. Yeah. The kid's ready to absolutely have an aneurysm, and you're in his face. And it's getting friggin' ugly. I mean, the stuff going down is like, what's being said is like, I look at Yuzo.
Make a trucker blush?
Absolutely, dude. And I look at Yuzo. Yuzo's the stoic Japanese. His eyes are this big because this is Ryan Dungy. This is the Boy Scout that everybody's heard about. And he's seeing these things. And I look at him and I go, clearly, Yuzo, I'm not being paid enough. And I walked out of the truck and I left. And
you should have had that hat made too.
I should have had that one too. And I see Akigoto, the head of racing, come up, and I told him the same thing. I go, I'm not getting paid enough, and I just kept walking. And I let it like a half hour go back, and I went and talked to Ryan, and he had calmed down. But the whole season was that roller coaster.
Yeah.
It was literally like that all year. And in Supercross, I think we ended up third. I think Reed got us with a race to go, maybe at Vegas or something. We would have been – he would have – because RV was –
This is RV's
year,
yeah.
breakout year. And we still would have finished second with all the crap that went down. And at Vegas, he just didn't ride good, and he got straight up beat. But yeah, that Supercross was like, we got through that. I'm like, oh, jeez. That was gnarly. And
he won some races though.
Yeah.
I mean,
we won races.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. And it's like, kid, despite everything, kid, you can still do this. Had he been 2 years older,
yeah,
he would have.
Yeah.
He was still a pup.
Well, you know what's interesting? Like when I had Ryan on the show, he talked a lot about how throughout his career, he was just always questioned, like, have I done enough? Am I good enough? He looked down the line. He was doing the same things a guy like me or even an intermediate on the line for a local race would do. Like he's looking at jerseys. He's like doubting himself. And I'm like,
intimidated.
Bro, you never finished off the podium like ever.
Yeah.
How are you not believing in yourself more? And I kind of thought, like, if you can't do it, how am I, what chance does a guy like me have?
Yeah.
But even at that level, and there's a few guys like Reed, I would say, who even when he couldn't win, he believed he could win.
It, absolutely.
That's a rarity.
Yep.
And I just thought it was so interesting to see him admit that he struggled with confidence.
That's where Roger.
And I think Roger and Ian were good for that. And he needed Alden even, I think, to tell him, look, you've done the work. You're ready to go.
Right.
Don't question it.
Yeah.
And that would calm his mind, right?
Yep, absolutely.
He was still figuring it out at this point in his career.
Yeah.
And
questioning everything. Yeah.
Totally. So what you're saying like jives with all that. The Nationals get really crazy. So let's talk about that because you guys went was it the first 4 motos or just Hangtown? You guys won.
No. We went to Texas. It started in Texas.
Oh, it was okay.
And he won the first moto. He won the first moto, like going away. He spanked him, and it was 300 degrees. And it was
it's the hottest race I've ever been to in my life.
So miserable, and it's just down in the valley. It's like the old Troy.
Yeah.
Back in the. But he wins the first race. We do all our prep, do all the work. We go to the second moto, and he's crushing the second moto. He's checked out. I forget how big his lead is, and he's Ryan Dungey, and it's his best. And there's 2 laps to go, and I'm at the far end of the track. I would never go to the manager's tower. I could never see anything, and it just, to me, it was stupid. It was like, that's where the cameras were, and all, a lot of managers were up there because they knew the cameras were there, and it made me nuts. I couldn't see the race. And I would always go off to some corner of the track where I could take it all in and listen to the guys and talk. And we're back there and at the far end of the track, and I go to Goose. I go, he just came through. I go, it's like plus 18 or something. It's like
massive
lead. And I'm kind of going, okay, now we're starting off good. It's the outdoors. It's first race of the year, 1-1. I'm already thinking like, this is going good. This will get his confidence back. And I hear Goose going, hey, he's slowing down. I hear in the headphones, and I'm going, yeah, Goose. Kind of sounded like you said he was slowing down. I go, yeah, he's slowing down. I go, his bike just came to a stop, and I'm like, and I'll never forget the stomach drop that you always hear about. Literally, my stomach dropped, and I'm like, he goes, his bike stopped, Mike. And I'm like, okay. So we start walking, and I hear Goose like screaming and yelling, and he can't touch the bike, right? Because Ryan still, there's a lap to go. And that's when the fuel boiled. So we pushed it across. We finished. First, Ryan snaps, flips out, which he has every right to. And we find out that we stayed with I want to say it was F&L Fuel at the time. And Roger had gotten with them the year before. And this guy was like this mad scientist whipping this stuff up in his bathtub, and it was insane. The horsepower stuff it produced. Well, because it was the bathtub concoction, it wasn't exactly the same the next year, and something was a little off, and it boiled. Right? We never ran out of gas. Same exact tank, same exact motor, same exact fuel company, but something changed.
Well, that day was, it could have just been that. That day was like,
it might have been
unbelievably humid and hot.
It was so crazy. And so it boiled. And again, that never would have happened with Roger came out. And instead of starting the season off with that, we've now started with the DNF. And I'm like, it was just another kick in the balls where you're like, God, I'm getting a little mope. Oh, I'm back to where I was again. So.
Okay, so did you guys switch fuel?
Yeah, what did I do? I did. I think I bought Elf from Europe because it was safe. Yeah, we went through everything, and then we clawed our way back into it. He would finish second, and RV was really starting to be RV at that point. And we clawed our way back. We won, I forget what, Colorado or something. Went to Washougal, and I think we won Washougal, and it was going into the break. We won Washougal, and we're like 2 points out of the championship. We're back in it, or 3 points, something. But I remember sitting with Ryan, I'm going, dude, despite everything, we're right back in this championship. He's like, I can't believe it. And I'm going, yeah. Go on the break. You got a week off after Washougal. We come back to, I think, Unadilla. It was Unadilla. And it's in practice, and they had just made that giant table. There was first year of that big whip table that they put in.
The sky shot.
Yeah, the sky shot. It was first year of that, and it, in practice, and they're going off, and Barsha's, they had bumped Barsha up to a 450. Geico had and let him ride at 450 or something. That race only, I believe. And in practice, he's in front of Dunge, and they go off that table, and Barsha just throws the thing upside down in front of Dunge, and the rear wheel missed Ryan's front tire by like a half an inch. He just threw this rude scrub, looked back at Ryan, beating Barsha, and Ryan's in the air, and he freaks out. It was so close to taking out his front end, and they're, 30 feet up. It would have been disastrous. And so Ryan comes in, and he's freaking out about Barsha, goddamn Barsha, this and that. I'm like, dude, let it go. I know it's gnarly, scary, the whole thing. You're okay. We got to get our head wrapped around this first moto coming up. We're only 2 points out of this thing, right? And your times are really good. I can't get him to calm down. Goose is trying to get him, and he's just freaked out about the Barsha thing. And we never did get him calmed down that whole day. He stayed completely flustered by the whole thing. He rode terrible the first moto, and didn't ride much better the second moto, and we lost a group of points there. But then in the next couple of races, he came back. He was strong. And then going into the final, it was Steel City back then, him and RV had that titanic battle. I mean, they just went at it. But RV beat them both. And actually, first moto, RV beat him in the last turn. Set him up and squared underneath and passed him in the last turn. And that was it. Except for designations, we sent him to Des and he won, and that was the last time he ever won Des.
I want to talk to you about that because that's an interesting story there too. But I want to go to Southwick.
Oh, Southwick! I forgot that good time.
Yeah, you'd have sold more hats here at this. He won the first moto, if I remember right.
Yep.
Washed the bike in between, like Goose had done a million times.
Yep. Same exact scenario. Bike
won't start for the second moto.
Yeah, it's like, no, it did start. So Goose gets on it, kicks it. Kick. Won't start. Goose is kicking, his heart rate's shooting through the moon. He gets off. Another young mechanic gets on, kick. Nothing. We're like, okay, here we go. And now it's to the point where we all know bike won't. It's not going to just arbitrarily start now.
Right.
It's not starting.
Something's going on. Yeah.
Right. So you start stripping it. You go through the panic mode, and
this is worst case scenario for mechanic too, because you don't know what it is.
We don't know.
It's not like you crashed and this broke.
Yeah, you don't know. It's electronic clearly, but we don't even know where to start. Is it fuel pump? Is it ignition? Is it black box? What is it? So we're going through it, and of course the horn blows. Now the pressure just freaking launches another 1,000 levels, and people are frigging out. It's like somebody go to hold that spot on the gate. kicking. Ryan's freaking. He's losing his mind. Has every right to. His mom's losing her mind. And this voice in the back of my head saying, Mike, you're not getting paid enough. That's all I remember thinking. And I'm watching, and they're stripping the bike down. And finally, they replaced the wire harness or something, which is, much work's involved with that. And they do. They replace the whole harness, put the thing together. I go down to the start because I got Medi on the line, right? We're still racing.
Oh, and I think didn't he win the day, or he?
It was the only national Medi ever won.
What a wild day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, we're down there on the line, and they do the start. The start takes off, and the rule is if you can make it past the gate before the leader comes around on one lap, you're okay to race. And it was something like out of a movie. The start takes off, and I just remember again my stomach dropped, going, "Okay, how do I explain this? How do I explain this to everybody? That no one's going to believe it." And I look, and here comes Goose coming down the hill at 8 million, and he had yellow rain gear on. I'll never forget. And he's just got that thing pinned, and it's a paved downhill, and it's wet. I mean, he's doing a $120 coming down this thing, and I'm like, holy shit! Slams on the brakes, and meanwhile, Dungey's mom was screaming at him or about something, and finally he jumps on the bike and as he takes off, whoever the leader was comes through, and Dungey just literally by seconds made it through. And I want to say he worked his way up to 7th. Thank you. Made it to 7th. And it was literally, I've watched that guy race almost every race he's ever done in his life. It was the best race I've ever seen in my life. He was frickin' unbelievable. Huh. So a lap down to 7th. And it was raining. There was no vision. People had their goggles pulled off. There was ruts, Southwick in the rain. It was berserk. And the guy was such a hero that day.
And what were Medi's scores? You remember?
I think a 3-1.
Okay.
Maybe. I think
so you're having like...
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine after this moto back in the pits, you're like, yeah.
If I was a drinking man, I would have been hammered for a week. But, I was so pumped for Medi because he was such a pleasure to work with. Oh, my God. You talk about a good human. And yet I knew the firestorm that was going to erupt after this one,
How did the Dungey family handle that? I mean,
remarkably well, because I think Ryan, remarkably well, now that I think about it, Ryan knew that he was a hero. He knew that was a ride of a lifetime. And I remember just telling him, I'm going, kid, I got no words. I go, that's the best I've ever seen you race in your life. And he felt good inside. I think at that point he had worked out the deal with KTM anyway. He knew he was going.
Oh, okay.
He knew that was in the bag, so it was almost like, well, that was pretty cool,
Was there conversation with you or with Suzuki about that, or no? It was hush, but kind of the chatter was there.
No, I told him, I go, he's gone. You guys know that, right? Well, you should give him an offer. I'm like, and I forget, I can't remember his manager, but he would come and talk to me sometimes, and I'm going, they're going to offer him what I'm paying him now. He's going, what a joke. I'm like, dude, you're getting mad at the messenger.
Yeah.
I have no control over that. But he, it was the best I ever saw that kid perform. And like you said, it was such a weird day. On that flight home, I was like a split personality on the plane. Part of me was so pumped for Medi, and the other part was, it's like, oh man, now the shit's really gonna hit the fan.
Gutted for him. I know. You just think, had the fuel not boiled in Texas, or this issue not happened,
he would have won the championship.
He'd have been the champ again. It's crazy. And it ended up being soap in the connection.
Soap,
or something.
So we sent everything back to Japan. Every electrical part there was immediately air freighted it back, and they said it was a soap that Goose had used his whole life. I think it was like Mr. Clean or something that we used.
Just something.
Yeah, just bought like at Home Depot. So.
When it rains, it pours, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just the thing.
Yeah.
And I heard you say before, and I thought this was super interesting, that, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it's just an interesting dynamic that throughout that whole year, Roger's over at KTM dealing with Alessi. I don't remember who he had.
Yeah, Alessi, and I can't remember the other guy.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, he was watching Ryan the whole year, and he would be like giving you guys, hey, this looks a little off, or hey, try this with him.
He told me I forget where it was, but it was Millville or somewhere, and after practice, we're all walking back to the trucks, and Roger goes, Mike, because, you know, his fork is a little soft. His fork is soft. You should stiffen it. I go, Roger, we're 2 stages stiffer than what you guys had it last year, because I had all the data from the year before. He goes, oh, okay, and walk away. But what bothered, and I knew, you know, it's Roger. He can't pretend. Roger.
No.
Roger couldn't fake anything.
No.
So I knew the whole time he was working behind the scenes, but what bummed me out one time was Lee McCullough, you know, Leroy.
Yeah.
He came to me and he goes, hey, dude, he goes, Ryan's dad is in between the semis talking to Roger on the cell phone. And I'm like, what? And it was in between motos. And sure enough, I walk around the side and I can see Ryan's dad. He's on the cell phone and he's talking to Roger 5 trucks over, like, what should we do? This is what Webb's got in the bike. What should we do? Mm-hmm. And that bummed me out massively. Like, hide it better. I can understand doing it, I guess, but hide it better than that. I'm not stupid. That pissed me off. And I told Roger later about that. I'm going, dude, I understand why you had to do it, but geez, come on, you know, get creative.
I mean, on the one hand, it's like he probably cared about Ryan.
Very much so.
Perhaps there was some selfishness. He wanted to keep his confidence high so that he had carried that into his season.
Right.
But it is kind of disrespectful. I feel like,
yeah.
But again, Roger doesn't have societal norms. He doesn't have social graces. No. It's like
very, very, very Euro in that way.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay, so tell me about the Motocross of Nations that year, because the last Motocross of Nations that USA won for
a decade,
a long time.
Yeah.
And I had heard you say that he made a comment afterwards, and it's like, it was super interesting to me about the bike.
Again, you got to remember how old he is at the time, because I always look back on that comment. But yeah, so we sent him to Europe, and I forget where it was that year, and America won. It was the final time they won before. Red Bud, maybe.
Yeah,
it was the next time they won. It was a long drought.
Yeah.
But Goose told me, he goes, as soon as he got done with the final moto, he handed the bike over to Goose, and he goes, I don't have to ride that piece of shit anymore. And Goose went, okay. And Goose told me, I go, no, you don't, Ryan. You don't. But the fact that he never did good at Nations after that, I'm like, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, I would like to get his thoughts on that. I mean, like I said, he's young.
He was a kid.
I'll bet he had different opinions after that next year.
Yeah, but you know, again, it goes back to I'll never judge him, because first of all, just the pressure and the things a kid that age has to deal with. At 17, I was such a wingnut.
Oh boy!
And to be able to do what he was doing, I have nothing but respect. But there were certain things that
the immaturity would shone through a bit. Yeah. That was one of those times. Seems like he is a great guy, man. Like, I always thought, this kid's faking. There's no one's this cheesy nice. And then you get to know him. Like,
he really is.
Nope, that's really
he really
that's
is.
Really Ryan.
He really is.
He's that sweet of a guy. Okay, so Dungey leaves the following year for KTM. How does your deal shape up for the following year? Would have been 2011.
Yeah. So we're budgets are being slashed to nothing at this point. And what's happening also in the background of all this is the slow beginning of Suzuki's pullout that we see today. This is the genesis of that, and it actually started when they didn't rehire Roger. That's when it began.
Yeah.
What we see today is the tail end of that.
So somebody up high made a decision that year when they only offered him 1 year, and they went, okay, we're going to start backing out of this.
And so I had Metcalf under contract, and I go, okay, I want to go get a second rider. And they go, no, you're going to race with Medi. I'm like, really? Just one guy? This whole program is going to, what if he gets hurt? That's what you're doing. I go, okay.
Oh.
So I just had Met. So, and I told Brett, I go, we can look at this two ways. You can look at it like, holy shit, this is a lot of pressure. You know, this entire infrastructure is here for me. If I don't perform, you know, it's the pressure's gnarly. Or you can say, this whole program's here for me to make me as great as I can be and the best performance I can give. So that's what I kept trying to tell Matt. It's like, Mitty, is like, look at it this way. We're all here for you. But at the same time, Showa has come out with its now famous air fork, right? And we have a big meeting. Japan comes in. They go, okay, you're going to this meeting with Showa. It's the new SSF fork, single side function fork. And so they pitch it and they shows the technical briefings and all this about the fork. And they go, okay, here's the works thing. You know, you're going to get 3 different sizes, blah, blah, blah. Go start testing. So we started testing with Mehdi, and it showed some promise in some ways, but a lot of ways it didn't. It was super inconsistent. We could not maintain the same performance throughout the day. It would change.
Even with nitrogen or other,
it didn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. It would change. So, and Mehdi was very sensitive to setup and really good about that. And he could feel things. And he was like, no, man, it does this, it does that, whatever it is. And I would be telling Showa, and I would be telling Suzuki, like my chassis engineers, I'm like, hey, keep that spring fork ready. You know, we still haven't found the sweet spot on this thing. And they're like, yeah, okay. So finally it's getting close to the start, and they're going, I go, yeah, we're not finding the happy point for this. We better go back to the spring. It's consistent. We know we have the data, blah, blah, blah. And they go, no, you're on the new fork. I'm like, well, you didn't say that. You said to test it that if I need be, I could go back. And they go, no, you're on the new fork because it's coming out on the production bike this year. I go, let me get this straight. You guys have a brand new technology that we can't figure out at the factory level. We cannot, with all our resources, with the guys that invented it, we can't figure it out. And you put it on the production bike? And they go, yeah. They go, that's why you have to run it. Again, you're engineering, you're smart, marketing, you're the dumbest people I've ever seen. And that thing, it got raped by the press. It was terrible. And
well, you think your works fork was bad. That stock one was brutal.
Yeah.
All of them, not just that.
They were just terrible.
Terrible.
And it was all based on economy. It was less parts. It was cheaper to produce. It was an economic move. It wasn't for technology. It wasn't performance. It was the lighter. It's lighter.
Yeah, that's how they sold it.
So really? So I'll run lighter tubes. You know, I'll run thinner graphics. So. But with Mehdi, so we went through that whole year, and we did okay. Supercross, he got hurt a couple of times, and we lost him a couple of rounds, and of course I didn't have a backup. And then outdoors,
So you guys just didn't go when he was hurt?
No, I'd send the truck, you know, and we'd walk around. But and then outdoors we did okay, and then he broke his leg, and that sucked so bad. And I haven't told this story before, but I was in charge. It's like when I was brought into racing, Ray Tetherton was the behind-the-scenes guy. And Ray had been at Suzuki since day one, like as far back as Pat Alexander, like at the very beginning, primal Suzuki. I mean, primal as in dinosaur Suzuki.
Yes.
And Ray had incredible control of everything, and he had the ear of the Japanese. When they would come, he would take them out to dinner, and he knew how to schmooze them, and he had been doing it for decades. And they loved Ray, and they trusted Ray. So when Roger left, they all clamored around Ray, and Ray says, I'm going to bring Webb in. Webb will be kind of the voice, the face, but I'm going to run everything behind the scenes. And I kind of didn't know this, but I didn't know it at all, actually. And so Ray and I kind of butted heads a few times. I go, I want to do this, I want to do that. And Ray's like, no, we're not doing that, we're doing this. I'm like, wait a minute. See the name on this.
Yeah, I think
tag.
it says manager.
Yeah. And so we butted heads a few times. And then, but I kind of learned to like pick my battles with them. And so we kind of worked out a business relationship where we could get through things. And he was in control of giving the works parts and all parts, the OEM production and works parts, to the mechanics, to the testing crew, to the practice mechanics. That was all Ray. Everything was through. He ordered the parts. He controlled the budgets on that. He did all that. I had nothing to do with any of it. He controlled the parts warehouse. Not the specs of the engine. I was more in control of that, but he was control of the hard parts themselves. Yeah. And Mehdi was practicing that summer. He had a works engine, works suspension, and stock tank. And a stock RMZ tank would do 30 minutes, maybe, max. And this is he's on a works bike, so it's not getting the same mileage. And he was at Glen Helen on a hot day, and he should have had a works outdoor high-capacity tank, because we had special carbon tanks from Europe built for outdoors for fuel capacity, and he should have had one, and he didn't. And I believe he had asked for one, and Ray said he's not. I got to be careful here, but as I recall, Ray said he's not even doing 35-minute motos. Why does he need a big tank? And I'm like, well, just for the insurance is what I'm thinking. Sure enough, the thing runs out of gas and he breaks his leg.
I was there that day.
Yeah.
I was out there testing a bike. That's my fire department that covers that area. Those guys show up, so I came over to help because he had knee braces on, and I'm like, hold on. I don't want you guys trying to get this thing off wrong. So I pulled his boot off. I cut the brace off, and I remember him just going, it just quit. You know what I was
ran out of gas. Straight ran out. So that was shitty. That was not right in any way. That's a big regret, that one. But we ended up there. We're done. Mehdi, he's out. At the same time, James calls me up out of the blue. I don't know James.
When is this? What time of the year?
So I want to say this is summertime.
That summer, okay.
Yeah, this is summertime. How did that work? Oh, yeah, it was summertime. Okay, so it's the end of summer. James calls me up, and he's getting ready to re-sign with Gibbs.
Okay.
His contract's up. And he calls me up out of the blue, and he goes, Webb, it's Stu. He goes, hey, I want to try your bike. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, this is what I'm thinking. This is Stu. I don't have any money.
Yeah.
I'm having the conversation with him, but I have no money.
So you know, though, that Mehdi's deal's up.
He's up.
Probably not going to get re-signed.
No.
So you need a rider.
I got to have a rider. Yeah.
So that...
Stu calls out of the blue.
Okay.
So he goes, let me test it. And he had gone out and got a production one and was like burning lap times faster than his works Yamaha and on the outdoor track. And I go, okay. So we built a works bike, kind of a Dungy Mehdi spec, and me and my Showa chassis guy and Leroy flew back to the compound, and we got the bike and we tested with James for 2 days or 3 days, and it was pretty unreal because it was James, right? But it was super quiet, super hush hush because he's contracted Yamaha.
Right.
So
is he still racing at this point in the summer with them, or was he out?
I don't think he did the outdoors with them. I thought he was Supercross only, I believe. I think.
Okay.
So he wasn't doing outdoors. But we went back there and we tested, and I want to say we tested, he did well over 150 laps.
Oh my gosh, so he's grinding out there.
He's grinding. And he was Stewart. It wasn't the Yamaha, the Death Yamaha Stewart. It was the Kawasaki Stewart. Yeah. He was so friggin' fast on that thing. It was, and I've said it a million times, it was mind-boggling what he was doing, lap after lap after lap, and never making a mistake, never stepping out one time, hundreds of laps. And I remember watching his dad, and his dad's just doing that kind of, and I'm going, I think that's a good sign, that motion. We finish up, and James, and every day he's just pumped. He is happy James. And we're going out to dinner afterward, and he and I hit it off immediately. My best friends are best friends because of humor. I'm attracted to humor. So funny people, it's what I'm attracted to. And certain humors really, really make me connect. And James has an incredible humor people don't know about, but it's funnier than hell when you get to know him. That part really hit off between us. So it was all good, and he goes, I'm doing it. I'm going, dude, I have no idea what kind of money I can get. It's not much. James goes, I don't care. I'm going to get killed on the Yamaha. I'm going, okay, let me go see. He goes, go see what you can put together number-wise. I go, okay. So I get back, and I think he was getting 2.5 from Yamaha at the time, signing, and big bonuses. So I go back to Suzuki, and I go, hey, big meeting, everybody get around the big table. I go, I can get Stewart. They're like, really? I go, yeah, I can get James. I go, now we've just come out of the debacle of Dungey. I go, we had a non-existent year with Medi. We can come back. I can get Stewart. I go, what kind of money do I have to work with? And they go, it's like, well, you got what you got. I go, no, this is Stewart. I can get Stewart. I go, all I get is Medi's money. And they go, that's what you got. I'm like,
and so this is the big bosses.
This is the biggest as it gets. It's as high as it gets. And I'm like, okay, so clearly this is important. So I figure out the budget. I take Medi's money. I put all his bonuses together. Because a bonus structure, as you know, it's still, you figure in the budget.
You guys weren't doing an insurance policy for that? You guys were covering it all in-house? Okay.
Covering it in-house. And bonuses are, it's in the budget. It's a line item in the budget. You have to figure out total liability of what the bonus would be, total payout, and that's the budget. Yeah. So I put it all together, and I come up with this number, and I want to say it was $800,000, maybe, everything together.
And he's coming off $2.5 million.
He's coming off 2.5. And I'm so embarrassed to call him, right, or to tell him, and he calls me because he's jonesing. He's so stoked again. And I go, James, I go, all I can get is 8. He's like, what? I go, I've scraped. Unless I take a second out of my house, bud.
Did you try calling the sponsors of the team?
I couldn't because this was all hush-hush at the time, so I couldn't really get outside because I thought about it.
Say maybe you go, hey, what could you pay? What could you bump us up if we have James Stewart?
Yeah. Well, in the end, Don Sakakura at Yosh kicked in. I want to say they kicked in 200. Yeah, so I think we came close to $1 million, but it wasn't $1 million. So maybe it was under 800 with Medi, and then Don kicked in. But whatever it was, I told James, and he goes, that bike is so good. He goes, I believe in you. I believe in the bike. He goes, I think we got a deal. I go, I can't believe it, right? So a couple of days go by, and a rumor starts coming out. He re-signed with Yamaha, and I'm not hearing from him. I'm like, God, he was pretty pumped a couple of days ago. So if I call him, or he called me, whatever it was, and he goes, Mike, he goes, I signed with Yamaha. I go, whoa. I go, really? He goes, Mike, he goes, the money. He goes, the total money, what they're offering. It could be a doorway into NASCAR after through the Gibbs racing team. And I go, I get it. I mean, I was heartbroken. It was like the girl at the prom, but I got it. I understood. And I was offering peanuts. Yeah. I had a great motorcycle and a lot of people that really wanted to go racing with them, but that's all I had. So he ends up signing with Gibbs, and I got Baggett. I got Blake. And Blake was a great kid. But his transition into the big bikes was kind of tough. He was small and light, and it took a lot of work to get him up to speed. But a couple of races into halfway through the Supercross season, James got knocked out a couple of times. Yamaha was throwing him on his head, and he called me up again out of the blue, and he goes, "Hey, is there any chance I can get that deal?" And I'm like, I go,
now I spent your $800.
I go, I don't know how I'm going to pull it off now. And I ended up being able to get the money together again I don't know where Suzuki got the money, but they had it obviously, but they got it for me. And I go, you're under a Yamaha contract. He goes, I'm going to get out of it. I go, okay. I go, here's the deal. And I met with Suzuki. I go, it has to be legit, above board, absolutely legal, or Suzuki's got nothing to do with it. Because the Japanese have a very interesting relationship between each company.
Yeah.
That you don't F over that other guy. You guys, they meet on the golf course on Sundays, each of the heads of each company, and they have a handshake commitment to each other that you don't screw over the other company. So that was really important, that it had to be, if you can get out legally, okay, we can talk. And he had a great lawyer. And
what were the grounds he got off on? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know what it was. It might have been related to risk or something. I don't know honestly what it was. But he got out, and I said, okay, we can sign you. But it was after Supercross. It was in between Supercross and outdoor. It was a couple of weeks, just a week or 2 weeks before the outdoor started. And I go, I can't sign you till next year. I won't have the money till next year, until Supercross. He goes, I want to race this summer. I go, I don't have the money, James. I can't sign you till next year. And he goes, I'll race for free. He goes, I'll race this summer for free. He goes, that's how much I want to be on that bike.
And this is 2012?
I think this. It might be.
Summer of 2012.
Yeah,
okay.
It might be. So we go testing, and he's the same guy I saw in Florida. He's friggin' James Stewart. And all those, the vids are still out today where he's coming off the drop off at Glen Helen, and he's throwing a scrub coming off that drop off, dragging the foot peg off that thing, looking at the camera. I saw that guy for a week straight. I'm going, holy cow, this is unbelievable. And we go to Hangtown, and he wins both motos. And convincingly.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget Roger walking up to me in the airport in Sacramento, just going, hey, take it easy on us. And it made me laughing, and I'm like, we got a long way to go. And we go to Texas, and he wins both motos. And I'm like, damn, this is legit. This is legit. And we go to Colorado, and he's faster than everybody in practice. First moto, he's checking out, and he's coming down that long freeway with the long rhythm lane into the 300 ruts, the right-hander where Eli blew his shoulder out, and he throws it away and breaks his thumb or wrist or something. So that started the roller coaster of James.
You go back and look through his career, like there's inconsistency all the way through. Now, he was better on the Kawasaki, got his championships in there, and so there's long. If you just start scrolling through, it's like 1-1-1-1-1, but then there's always a 12, 16. Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It was peppered with that all throughout, but then it's like it got worse.
Yeah, it did.
He'd still go on runs of win 4 motos straight, and then DNF.
When Stu would keep showing, when the old Stu would show up, you knew it. You could feel it that day. You could feel the vibe, and it's like, okay, it's the old. Yeah, I couldn't bottle it, just like with Rhino. I couldn't bottle it.
Yeah,
it was too late in the career, and there'd been too much damage to his body, but it was still there.
Did you ever? It feels like, again, I'm just watching from the outside, but he'd get to a lead. And this is something I really admire about Jet Lawrence is he'll have a 3-4 second lead, and he just manages it. He doesn't try to get a 10-second lead. I'm going to keep it right here. I know I can do this for the next 20 minutes or whatever. Yeah. Where James was like, I'm going to bury you guys. I'm going to lap all of you. Yeah. And then you'd have something like that,
happened numerous times. Yeah.
Did you ever talk to him about that?
Oh, God, I'd get so pissed. We were at Unadilla, and he was checking out. That first year, he was 8-10 second lead. He was 2 seconds a lap. And I'm yelling in the headphones. I'm going, tell him to effing slow down. He's got a 12-second lead. We need to win, not by 20 seconds. And I'm getting more mad because it's almost like, I don't know if you follow F1, but Senna Ayrton Senna, there was a famous race at Monaco where he's racing and he is so fast in qualifying that he literally wins qualifying by 2 seconds or something. F1, which is unheard of. And he said, Senna, in the quote, he goes, I reached a plateau in those laps where I absolutely separated myself from the car, and I was above the car watching myself drive it. And it's a really weird description, but I equate that with James. When James would get to these levels like where he's gone, I can even go faster. I swear to God, it was what Senna described there. And that day at Unadilla, he was doing that. He was going faster and jumping into ruts farther and deeper. And I'm going, okay, this is not going to end well.
You're almost seeing the writing on the wall.
I've been around way too long. Yeah. It's like, and sure enough, he just helicopters off this cross ruts and just catastrophic crash. And we're getting him back to the truck, and I'm pissed because it was an easy win. It was an easy win. And his dad saying something, Mac, he goes, I don't know, maybe that shock. I'm going, what are you, high? Are you nuts? It was ridiculous. He was putting 2 seconds a lap. He backs it down 10%. We win by 5 seconds. Don't tell me about the shock. Those kind of moments would make me nuts. He did the same thing at Southwick one year, checking out. He's gone, and there was a section in the back, and he's just jumping into these square edge, absolute square edge, and he's jumping farther every single lap, and then it's a big rut to a kicker, and he's jumping in, and he hits it wrong one lap, doing Mach 90, and same thing, just breaks him in half, knocks him out. And again, I'm pissed, I'm bummed. That's interesting. That's the race where I first became aware of the racism with James surrounding it. It's the first time I ever saw it. Because I knew it was there. I just, in America, it's still there, right? But within the team, with me and him, it's like I was so tight with the guy. I never thought about it that way. It's ridiculous. It's naive for me to say that I don't know that he's black. Of course I knew he was black, but he was so funny and we were so tight that I never really saw it. But we were in Southwick, and I've learned from traveling that Boston is the most racist place I've ever been in my life.
Oh, really?
10 times more than the Southeast or the South. 10 times more. And he crashed, and bad, and he was knocked out, and they're carting him off. And back then, I would walk to the far back part of the track where I could see, and I have to walk through you remember those crowds are when you're walking back to the pits, there's thousands of people. You're trying to walk through, and you're in this mass Disneyland crowd trying to get back to the trucks. And I'm walking through, and I'm with my chassis guy, engineer, and this drunk guy comes running up, and he goes, "Is he dead? Is he dead? Is the N dead?" And he's drunk off his ass, screaming in my face. And I just wanted to choke this guy out. I'm like, what era are we in? What year is it? I'm thinking to myself. But that was the first time I ever. And James and I never really talked about it. He told me about how his mom got spit on a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah, she would be inside the fence cheering him on, and people in the crowd would be spitting on her, things like that. And that's when you talk about James and you talk about everything accomplished and how sometimes he could have been more open to people or more accessible to people. There's that aspect that you and I will never understand, ever. And it was very real, and it did exist. But literally, the times I did see it were shocking to me. And
well, I think because it's one person out of a huge crowd, right?
Absolutely.
It's not, I don't think we have systemic racism.
I don't think so either.
There's always assholes.
And it's funny because I'm more.
And that guy will make us all look bad, right?
Exactly.
Like he ruins it for everybody because you now make James go, you know what?
Right.
I don't want to come out and sign autographs.
And I don't care, Italians, French, black, white, Asian, there's assholes in every group.
For sure,
100%. And when I did see it, and James would, sometimes he'd talk about it a little bit, not too much. We went out to lunch once. This was a weird one. We went out to lunch out in Chino Hills, and it was a good barbecue place. And it was the whole team. Don Sakakura took us all out, and we were all sitting there at lunch, and I don't know, it was just weird how it happened, but the waiter's going, what would you like? I go, well, I'll have the pulled pork sandwich. And so what would you like? Well, I'll have the tri-tip. And they go to James, and the waiter goes, and you want the chicken? You want the fried chicken? And I just remember going, what? And
Really?
James turns around. This isn't Chino Hills, right? This isn't Boston or Atlanta. And James looks at the guy and goes, are you kidding me? And that was another one of those, like, holy cow. Humans are unbelievable sometimes. So
that's disappointing.
Not to get into the weeds on that, but that Southwick crash reminded me of that, of walking back through the crowds.
I've heard that story. I wasn't there, didn't see it. Of that, maybe that's the incident that everyone talks about where they yelled, whatever. And yeah, that's such a bummer, man. I didn't know Boston was like that.
Yeah,
very liberal town too.
I tell you,
terrible. Okay, so he gets through that summer. The speed's there. Maybe too much speed at times.
Yeah.
What's his response when you go, dude, you got to just, does he? He
would say, okay, Mike. He would look at me absolutely in the eyes. Okay. Go right out and do whatever he was going to do. Yeah. I mean, he was programmed from him and his dad. That youth programming.
He's Ricky Bobby,
changed.
Dude.
Absolutely. It never changed.
Did you notice, and this will come into play when we start talking about the drug issue, the ban, did you notice any residual from the concussions? Because he had, just off the top of my head, I remember the Vegas one where he went over the bars as a rookie. Yeah. The one at High Point when he's battling with Ricky, the one at Unadilla when he's battling with Ricky. I can think of 5 gnarly hits.
Head slaps, yeah.
Head slappers.
Yeah. No.
He never complained of issues or,
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, just he's had some of the worst crashes, and I just
people didn't know how bad his knees were, and
really?
His wrists.
Oh.
Yeah, his knees were like yours. He was hurting all the time, bad. And I don't think he had an ACL for a long time. I don't know if he ever did get it fixed. And then he had bad wrists, really bad wrists.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so take us into 2014. The season ends. You guys actually put a deal together where he's actually going to get paid a little bit. Prep to that season. How is it going? What are you thinking?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. He was happy with the bike. Everything was good. Supercross was good. And I believe at the opener he tweaked his knee.
Well, that's where he crashed in the whoops.
Oh, yeah, we was passing
Roxon.
Kenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just a little buck, and then that was another violent one. He went in face first.
Yep.
Funny how he got spit.
Yeah.
But his face broke his fall.
That's right. That's right.
And had to be a concussion.
Yeah. He was out for that one because I don't even remember talking to him afterwards, but. Yeah, that was the start was great, and then he did that big one. I forgot all about that.
And he was, I remember watching him practice. I'm like, yeah, Stu's back. He's gonna crush these guys, or he'll be up there racing for the win, no question.
You know what's funny about him is you're talking about confidence and Dunge with his confidence. We would walk the track every Saturday morning. We'd get to a Supercross, and we'd be walking, and there'd be me and James and chassis engineer, maybe. Rado and a couple of guys hanging, maybe Malcolm, and we'd walk up to triple, and he'd look at it, he's like, "This thing's longer than normal." I go, "No, it's same as the track at home or Supercross." He goes, "No, Mike." He goes, "This face is steeper, it's a little bit taller, and this is longer. I guarantee you." He would do that every week, and he's going, "That jump's sketchy." And when he'd first go out to practice, he wouldn't jump it, and he'd usually get towed off it.
Really? On a triple?
James Stewart. Yeah. And because it cracked me up because I still rode a lot back then, and I would get to like Milestone or something on a practice day, just open ride day, and they built up that step up.
Well, when I raced, I stopped looking at the triple from the front one.
Oh.
I would just go right around it because there's something about standing on top of the first jump. It looks really gnarly.
Yeah.
If you stand on the
see
third
that
one,
edge way down there.
I don't know what it is. But like what he's saying, you go, I don't know, this looks kind of far. And then you look at, oh, this is steep. I'm close to the corner. Like,
Yeah. He would do that.
you get in your head. So I stopped doing it. I
just
made
saw it from the side.
I made myself walk around the side and get on the third one.
Oh, wow.
And I look back and go, oh yeah, I got that. That's whatever.
Yeah. He just brought.
You know they're within a few feet.
Right,
They
right.
don't.
Yeah,
They
it's-
built them the same, but
Yeah.
you get in your head. That's funny that he would say that. James Stewart,
James
sweating
Stewart.
a triple.
There you go.
Like the most basic thing
Yeah,
too on a
yeah.
track. Okay, so how did the rest of that year? You know, obviously,
It was
Bummer there.
up and down. We had wait a minute, that was the year. We had a really good year. That
he won
year.
6 races.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
14, that was, so we came back from that. We knew we were fast. And then he put together a string in the middle there. And I think I forget what kicked it off. It might have been Detroit or maybe Texas, one of them.
He won like 3 or 4 in a row, right? Yeah.
So he won the first one, and it was a solid win. It was like he was great.
Yeah.
Bike, everything's good. We're all happy. We have that stupid fork on the bike still.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
still dealing with this
We're
air
fighting
fork?
with this fork, and this was an ongoing, never stop battle. Because James, if you think Mehdi was sensitive, oh my God! If a mosquito landed on James's front fender, he could feel the front end. He could feel the difference. He was so.
Were you say you were dealing with the pressure change throughout the race? What I always felt with the production was like a crust. Like
Yeah,
it was
a blow through.
It was like that top a little initial bit, you'd feel every little bump, and then once you got into the stroke a little bit, that felt okay.
Right.
But there was always this firm crust at the top.
And the breakthrough through that.
Yeah.
That transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Same
was the
thing?
same thing. It was
Okay.
the same thing. Because James had a thing about that, because he would run the rear low and the front high. And it's kind of same with Ricky. That was almost to give them the confidence. If I send it, I'm not going to go over the bars. This incredible fear of going over the bars, because they probably did it a million times. So that's why they got that chopper set up.
When he would ride so far forward.
Right.
I mean, his head was
So
out
if
over
I
the
got
fender.
that front end far enough, no matter how forward I get, but we were fighting that fork, fighting it, and I'll have to look back, but I think we won one, then we won Detroit, and then we went to Canada, and that was the race where he came from almost last to first. That was Montreal, or was it Toronto?
Yeah.
It was Toronto, and oh my God, what a nightmare that was. So in practice, the fork is changing like crazy, and every session he's gone. He would come in pissed, and he would just come into me and the chassis guy, and he's going, it changed again, and he'd walk away, meaning the fork, the pressure changed again. And for him, he would feel the drop. He would feel that breakthrough on the crust you're talking about. He would immediately feel that, and that drop in his head said he was going over the bars, and he wanted hold up there.
God, you think the pressure would build and it would be firmer.
Yeah.
But he was having a different feeling.
But he could feel the front end height change. That was his thing. So we're going through practice, and he's faster than hell because he's got the wind in his back from the victories prior to that. But we're fighting this fork really bad that night in Canada, and finally it's before the main. We've gone through everything. We've made 1,000 changes, and we've had that fork apart every single session all night long. And my chassis guy's pulled his hair out. He doesn't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I'm sitting there, and we got to get ready for the main. We got to build the bike for the main, whatever the spec's going to be. And I look at, and it was Rob Hendrickson, from RG3.
Rob's great, yeah.
Great guy, brilliant
Brilliant
man.
guy.
I go, Rob, what do we do, dude? I don't know what to do. What do we do? And he goes, Mike, Kiwi. He goes, I tell you what we do. He goes, we put a brand new fork on and we pray. I said, all right. So that's what we did. We slapped a brand new spec fork on that Rob built, brand new, put it on, and that was the best Supercross I ever saw him ride. It was last to first. Almost last.
Yeah. Incredible ride.
Incredible.
Okay, so then you get into the Nationals. I think he won one. Maybe he didn't win a race early on. Did he win a National? High Point.
High Point. Oh, yeah, it was High Point. Yep, because, again, we didn't start off that good, but by High Point, he beat Dunge and Kenny straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up. And I remember we were he was on the podium with Dungeon and Kenny, and I was standing over here, and he looks right at me, and he goes, I beat him straight up. And I go, yeah, you did. I go, and those two know it. And you could see Kenny and Dungeon going, this guy won't go away. He's still Stu. And just elation, just so pumped. And it's like, okay, the bike's good. But by now we're on the spring fork.
Oh, okay.
Because after Canada, I came back. We had a meeting after Canada. I said, I go, here's the deal. I'm not going through that again. Put the spring fork on the bike. Oh, we can't, Mike. So I go, okay. So I call James. I come back in the meeting after I call James. I go, yeah, he's not going to race. And what do you mean? I go, he's not going to race with that fork anymore. You put the spring fork on, or he's not racing. They're going, well, he can't do that. I go, I'm just telling you straight up. This is what's going to happen. They go, okay, put it on. So that's when we switched back to the spring. So we go to High Point. He wins the moto. We're back in the battle. We're in third, but a couple points out of the championship. Fly home. I'm pumped. I'm doing my race report. I'm pumped. Everything's bitching. And it's the next day, racing. You fly home. Your day off is fly home.
Yeah.
And Monday morning back in the office, and we're at the big debrief. And I got everybody at the table, 20 guys, engineers, all the big wigs. Rod Lapuznak calls me. And he goes, Mike. I go, Rob. And he's back in Atlanta. I go, Rod, how are you? And he goes, good. He goes, hey, I got to talk to you. I go, well, I'm right in the meeting. He goes, I got to talk to you right now. I go, all right. I go, excuse me, guys. And I step out of the meeting. He goes, hey, I just got word that James failed the drug test. I'm like, and this is, this has been, what, 5 years now of this? It's like, okay.
Stomach drop again.
Yeah,
you're like, I know that feeling.
Again. Yeah, we're used to it. And he goes, Cernick called Rod, and Cernick had heard it from Europe. So there was a GP in Europe at that weekend. The word at the GP was that James had failed a WADA test, and they knew about it in Europe. It was a Dutch GP. It was at Lommel or something. Cernick finds out about it from his connections in Europe. He calls Rod. Rod calls me, and I'm like, okay. So I call James. I go, James, Rod just called me. He said he heard you failed the drug test. And I don't know what it was from. It was from back in Supercross, and I don't know what it was from, what it was. And James was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't heard anything, which just absolutely unleashes the stupidity of that whole era of the drug testing and how it was supposed to be so legit and so transparent and so secretive. It was so much bullshit, the entire thing. And he calls me back and he goes, I can't get any information. Well, by that afternoon, they finally notified him. They go, yeah, you've been suspended for failing a drug test from the
Seattle round,
exactly.
Of Supercross. Months before. So that then started that whole debacle after that. It's what a nightmare, because there's no, you don't reach out, okay, let me get the playbook on how to deal with a drug deal with your rider. It's like, where do you even start? So yeah, and so what came out of that was it was Adderall. That he didn't put on the form. He says he has a
he didn't have the TUE.
Yeah.
So he had said he took it. He knew that it was. He was aware. He told everybody he took it, but he didn't fill out the TUE, so it didn't matter. The paperwork wasn't put in. And what upset me about that was, and I got upset with his dad, and his dad will probably get pissed to hear this, but if I missed the spec on James's bike, I would not hear the end of it from his dad. He would be in my face for an hour, scream, Mike, you missed it. He doesn't like that bike. He doesn't like that shock. You didn't, whatever. He would be unrelenting in attacking me on that. But with all those people that were around James, that giant group of people that supported him, nobody knew about a TUE, because I didn't know he was on Adderall. I didn't know he was taking anything. So I wasn't worried. I don't sit down with my riders and go, okay, no, tell me what supplements you're on.
Right.
I never even thought about that. Maybe after Tickle's thing, everybody started doing that. But prior to that, nobody did it. And that pissed me off, that with that huge group of people that were on James's payroll, nobody could check about the paperwork. Nobody could check on that part. And that bothered the hell out of me. It's like, because it caught me out of left field. I had no clue. And he told me, he goes, yeah, I take Adderall. I didn't even know what Adderall was. I go, what is that? He goes, well, it helps him with, to think clearer. He goes, based because of my concussions, it helps me through that. And I go, okay, well, I don't understand what's wrong about that. Now I hear Adderall, college students taking it for exams and all that stuff.
It's an ADHD medication, is what but it's an amphetamine.
Yeah, it's speed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that what a mess, because then he went to Geneva to deal with it. He flew his lawyers. He spent a ton of money fighting it. And like he would call me, he's going, Mike, he goes, the prosecutor for the FIM just went to lunch with the judge. So they would have the morning session in court, and then we're taking our lunch break. The prosecutor and the judge went to lunch, and I'm going, we're screwed, and we were.
Yeah, they were unrelenting. Absolutely no flexibility on it whatsoever. No, even just common sense,
And the fact that it was supposed to be such a controlled, legit, above board. It wasn't. It wasn't any of those things. It was collusion. It was leaks everywhere. Everybody in Europe knew it.
Poor communication. Oh yeah, I mean that's.
Are you kidding me? Europe knew it before we ever heard it.
They're actually. It could have been HIPAA violations even. You know, like you giving up what another person's medications are.
Yeah.
He probably had some legal standing there. Anyway, it's what a mess, man. Yeah. What a blemish on the history of our sport those few years. Tickle, James, and there was a privateer that got hosed to brain farting on his name, but anyway.
Well, even Davey, the crap with Davey and what was in his locker or something when he got let go. It's just the thing with James is I kept thinking to myself, blemish is a great word on his career, but I kept thinking his career was so great that hopefully time will let that go, and I think it has.
Oh yeah, he's
come back as Hero James again, which I love.
Sure. Yeah,
and I'm glad that it came back to that. So,
and he deserves it. I mean, as beautiful as Jed is to watch, as talented and technical as Jeremy was, as flat out and wide open as Ricky was, pure speed.
Yeah, no
one has what James had.
Yeah, nobody had that.
There was stuff that guy would do. I mean, I want to hear some of the moments that stand out for you, but like, I was racing against him in 2002, and there was a triple at Phoenix on a 125. It was just next to impossible. All of us tried it in practice. It wasn't enough room to get to third, so you had to do it in second.
Just scream second.
That was scary as hell. And I tried it 2 or 3 times, just framed it. And I'm like, it's not doable. And James would rip that sucker and just be pancaked flat, And I'm like, I got nothing.
It's that factory Cali.
I mean.
Yeah. But it was corner speed.
I was on a factory KTM that probably made more horsepower than his bike.
Yeah,
I mean, he was just magical.
Yeah.
What were some of the moments where you just...
most of them were practicing, actually, because the race I was too intense on who's behind and all that. But practicing, I remember we were at Kihia, and I think it's still there at Kihia. There's a table, and then it comes downhill, and like the pits are on this side. And it's a long downhill into a big right-hand sweeper. And he goes in practice, before he went out, we were testing or something, he goes, go stand at the bottom of that downhill. And it's not like a giant, it's not like a Glen Helen downhill. It's a sloping, gradual downhill. But you're hitting the table, I think, in fourth, and then it's wide open, and breaking bumps into a right-hander. And I get there at the bottom, and he comes off that table, and I think he was in fifth and never lifted. And that thing was on the chip all the way to like the first break. And I'm going, well, he's going to die because there's no way you can stop, first of all. And he's going, I don't know how fast he's going, but he's going to fly through this. He's going to hit that truck, take out that tree because it's impossible. And he hits the first braking bump, gets air, like downshifts, buries it in the turn, and just takes off again. And I was so stunned by the speed. Then he did it the next lap, and then he did it the next lap. And he came in afterwards, and he's just looking at me and goes, "What'd you think of that, Webb?" I'm like, yeah. Not many humans can do that.
I mean, there's been a handful of times where you just watch him and you go, how?
Yeah.
Like, no, that is what he just did defied physics.
Yeah.
That scrub you're talking about off Showy Hill at Glen Helen.
The other one he did.
Who can do that?
No,
like,
I don't know. It's just people always talk about generational talent, and I think his is just even a different spec than that. So.
Yeah, and it's a shame. Like when you look at, we'll see what happens over time. You know, his legacy ends up being, but he doesn't have the championships he should because he couldn't figure out a way to just back it down, right? And he threw away at least 3 or 4 titles,
at least,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it all snowballs. He doesn't. If he could back it down, then he doesn't crash. He doesn't get the concussions. He doesn't need the Adderall. He doesn't get the drug suspension.
His outdoor season is better because he didn't get hurt on the indoor season, and they all start feeding each other.
Yeah, it all just kind of snowballs on him. But talent, speed, and just magic, the stuff he would do, you just go, what in the world? He was doing stuff the premier class guys weren't doing on a 125.
Yeah.
That ride at Budds Creek, still
unbelievable.
Nothing like it. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't need to go on too long, but okay. So during a suspension, what are you guys doing?
Flipping out. Yeah, it was a really bad time because it's funny because Coombs, Davey and I weren't that tight for some other reasons. And all of a sudden, my phone's ringing off the hook because Davey wants him for the outdoors. He's like, he can race the outdoors. The violation was for Supercross. We're not connected with that. We're a different series. It's okay. He can race the because he wanted James there
Sure.
on the line. And we looked into it, and Suzuki's like, we're not going to get in trouble. You know, we're so afraid of the courts. So we looked into it, and I guess we found out that, yeah, he could. We never got a clear answer. We understood that he could ride the outdoors and it wouldn't affect the suspension from Supercross or anything else. But it turns out it did. It turns out we were told to stop because it would add on. It would just add on to the length of the suspension. But we came back and did a couple, and we tried a couple, and he was so not into it. He was so shattered. He was completely shattered by the whole thing. I mean, shattered. The kid, that funny, likable, easygoing kid, was gone. And
Oh, really?
There was just a vacant stare. And when I see him, he was just not even the same guy. And so he tried to race, but it was hopeless. We never stood a chance.
And that would have been the 2015 season.
Yeah.
So did you guys go racing with anybody? I can't remember.
Yeah. What did I do? We had Blake.
Oh, Blake.
Yeah.
Okay. And he did all right for
Blake
you guys.
did good. We got a podium at I think Budds Creek, and he did well. He did good. He struggled a little bit with confidence getting on the big bike. That's where I brought RJ into.
Yeah.
It was like, God, if there's anybody that has a grasp on confidence, it's Ricky.
Yeah.
So I brought Ricky in to work with him, and that helped him a lot. And then and Blake he slowly evolved, and he got, by the KTM, he was great.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, we went with Blake that year.
Okay, so end of that season, you're going into to 2016. Several things happened. When did the RCH program start? 14 or 15?
It started the year 15.
Okay.
So RCH starts, but that year they had Brock and somebody else. Forget who.
Tedesco or Hansen?
Maybe it was Tedesco.
It was Tedesco.
Or no, he was a test rider. I forget who it was.
Anyway,
So they came on board, and interesting because meanwhile I'm battling for every dime I can to get Stewart, right? I mean, I'm like doing everything but taking a second out of my house.
Yeah.
And Suzuki, we have no money. Okay. All of a sudden, one day I get a call. It's like, hey, Mike, we've hired RCH. It's Ricky and Carrie put together a race team, and they're gonna share your resources at Yosh, and have access to all the factories. So I'm like, whoa, wait. Where did all this money come from? They're going, well, don't worry about it. But they're bringing in a lot of money through Kerry's marketing expertise. And again, they will share the resources at the race shop. And I'm just hearing this and I'm livid. I've been to so many meetings begging for a dime, and they're, nope. You can create an entire race program out of nothing, out of vapor.
And they probably didn't spend a lot of cash dollars, but it was.
But there was some spending.
Was there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. They did spend it.
And they were providing factory parts, which is, again, certainly cost.
And you know this, you're running Troy Lee, and you have your program and your team, and all of a sudden Troy comes to you and goes, by the way, we're going to add a whole nother race team. I want you to share everything with them. Share the shop, share the semi, share the test track, share all your data. Share it with this other team. You would be going,
oh, yes. No.
Are you nuts?
Super awkward.
I'm so protective of my people. It's like, no, these are the guys I'm responsible for. I'm not sharing anything. So they threw that in my lap, and it wasn't a threat when it was Brock and whoever it was. But, and we kind of kept it separated, where I would let him have the works parts, but I wouldn't let him have any data. I go, I'm not sharing my data with anybody. I don't give a shit who it is. And Ricky'd get all pissed at me. we were at one meeting. The first meeting they brought it up. We're in this big meeting. They go, and this is how you guys are all going to be in bed together, and it's going to just be this one big fat. And I am pissed off. And I got a pretty bad temper when I get worked up, and I'm just steaming in this meeting. And Ricky's kind of looking at me, kind of smiling, you know. He goes, it's going to be great, Webb, but the way he's doing it, I'm not digging, kind of. And after the meeting, we take a break for lunch, and he comes out. He goes, Webb, what are you so pissed off about? And I go, Ricky, of all the people to say that, I go, I know for a fact that when you were on the race team, when you were the 450 rider, if Roger and Ian would go to the lights truck to talk to the lights riders, you'd be pissed off that they weren't in your truck staying with you. I know that for a fact. So don't tell me that why am I pissed off? I've just had to open my entire race program to another team. I go, yeah, it's you, but it's literally, you're another team to me. You're a competitor to me. I'm responsible for these mechanics and these riders, and this is what I'm responsible for. Now I just have to give it all away? He goes, you know how it is. And I never was good with that, ever. But meanwhile, James starts having all of his issues with the legalities of the WADA deal, and they get Kenny, right? So all of a sudden now they're legit. They got a player, they got Kenny, and I got a guy that's not even racing. Mm-hmm. That's illegal. So Suzuki's looking at me going, we like this.
Yeah, I mean, if Stu's racing and winning and they're tickle and whoever, it's like, okay, I don't like this, but I can manage. Now, your guy's out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, the dynamics are weird.
But you know how small the Supercross track is up in Corona? RCH would have their trailer here. I'd have my trailer here, test trailer. Kenny would be sitting in his chair here. James would be sitting in his chair here. And literally, there would be an invisible line in between, and nobody would talk to each other.
Is that right?
It was so friggin' awkward. It was so bad. And I remember, I wish I could get those idiots that put this thing together and bring them down here, you know. It's like, you guys deal with this. But from Suzuki's standpoint, they probably thought, you know, great marketing with Kerry, and he was brilliant at it. They got the money to get Suzuki didn't have to pay for that. They paid for bonuses, I think, for Kenny. And then they couldn't even pay for that because Kenny ended up winning everything. They weren't ready for it, and I think they had to borrow the money from Marine Division.
Is that right?
To pay Kenny, yeah, because they weren't ready for it. And they didn't have the money.
And he won this outdoor title that year.
He won the outdoor title, yeah. But that whole thing went down. It was a great masterful stroke by Suzuki and how they deal with things.
I mean. It's almost like they Forrest Gump their way into some things,
absolutely.
Right?
That's a great way to say it. Yeah, absolutely.
Just like that, for no particular reason.
For no particular
we hired
reason. And it's funny because Rod Labuznak is a really good friend of mine and a good guy. But he's the one who broke the news about Carmichael and Hart. And I remember saying, I'm going, Rod, I can't believe you're doing this to me. And I kind of took it personally. It's like, yeah, I see the big picture. And I know James is this. I go, but I have fought so friggin' hard for this thing for so long. And it's like, Ricky, Kerry, here. And it's like, okay. So. Yeah, it was very awkward. So
Ricky's got a lot of leverage. Kerry's got a lot of horsepower with, fame.
yeah, absolutely. And Kerry was Kerry's a hell of a businessman. I don't know, people don't know that side of him, but he's a legit gnarly businessman. So yeah, he was really good at what he did. So
Okay, so that weirdness is going on. You guys are coming back to racing in 2016 with James.
yeah.
Who did you have somebody else that year?
No,
It was just James.
just James.
How was everything leading into the season?
Not good.
It wasn't good.
No, he had gained quite a bit of weight. He was still on the phone telling me everything was okay, but I could just.
You mentioned when he came back for that summer, like kind of the spark was gone.
Right.
Still that same vibe.
Yeah, it's gone, and he wasn't the lean, just that predator was gone. It was more like a guy going through the motions, and again he'd gained quite a bit of weight. I was really surprised by that. Really surprised. He's like, no, I can shed it, no problem. But it was more like, yeah, I'm just going to mail this in. So his heart wasn't in it, His heart was not in it.
Well, we'll never know because that opener.
He got KO'd again.
KO'd again on the opening lap, which you can't blame anyone.
No.
And ironically, it's Dungey.
Dungey, yeah.
He was cutting down. I forget who was even leading.
No, he wasn't leading.
No, Stu was second, cutting down on whoever was leading. I don't remember who it was, but
Maybe RV.
Maybe, and Dungey was just coming inside, covering his inside, so someone didn't do it to him.
Right.
They didn't see each other, and James slapped his head on the berm.
Again, yeah. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
And you look at the results after 2014, after that High Point win, he never won again.
Right.
In fact, his best finish after that race was a 14th.
Yep.
So kind of a sad ending to that.
Very
his whole
sad
career,
and very long and drawn out and arduous and tough on everybody, because from managing, you're a big cheerleader too. You're trying to keep everybody smiling and people pumped and the people above you happy and the guys down below in the trenches happy, and I was miserable. I was over it.
So that brings me to our Seat Concepts hot seat question. If you guys need a new seat cover, a complete seat, a comfort seat to take a little pressure off your rear end, check out Seat Concepts. Amazing products. You know those guys well.
I do.
believe.
Lyndon, yeah, great.
Lyndon's
guy.
a great guy, great company. Talk about that team manager role, because when I stepped into it, there was a lot of just basic things I needed to do to take that team from supermoto focus to supercross. I just implemented some basic things, and it was an improvement. And then the following year, when we had Will Hahn, Cole Seeley, and BT, it was like I had to really.
You had players.
I had players. I had to really step up, and it was like I was going to the track with them sometimes as a coach. I'm writing contracts. I'm dealing with budget stuff. I don't know how to do an Excel spreadsheet a year before. I'm learning a lot of
quick.
You got to learn quick, and then the travel. Your phone number stops ringing. You're dealing with sponsors. I got to keep Troy and Bill happy. The mechanics are complaining. I need this. It is the most all-consuming job I had ever had. And I thought, I don't know how a guy like Eric Kehoe, how did he do it so many years?
I don't know. That's why I take my hat off to Roger.
Roger, same thing.
How on earth do you? I saw Ian in January. I go, dude, I can't believe you're still doing this. He goes, Mike. He goes, me neither. But you're right. It's so consuming. You do not have a life of any kind, which is okay if you're committed to that. At the time, I had remarried. I had younger children, and I hadn't seen them for a couple of years, and that was weighing on me heavily. And the fun, the sheer enjoyment of the off-road days was eclipsed when I went to Supercross, Motocross. The only moments that would bring it back were the victories. And then and as we know, it's so incredibly unfair in racing. A victory is never as good as a loss is bad, if that makes sense.
It's very true, yeah.
It's a victory lasts for dinner, celebration, and then on the flight home, you're going, how do I redo this next week? A loss sticks with you all the way through the week. It never leaves you. So that's the highlights would be the wins. but unfortunately there weren't enough to keep you going. And then just the way that last year ended, that last season, it just, whatever I had left in me was sucked out.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just remember my wife just looked at me, she goes, "You are miserable." and I go, "Yeah." I go, "The money doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything at all. I'm so over it." So it was no problem walking away from it. That's for sure.
Did you walk away that year after that season?
Yeah. I did. I just took a break because I thought, well, I'll do something else. I'll get back into it. I was 63 or something at the time. And then my wife was starting her career, and I'm like, man, I wanted to just be with my boys so bad and just do everything with them that I'd missed for 4 years. And I just said, nah, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to be dad. So
yeah, I mean, if you don't have to.
Yeah. Luckily, we were able to work it out. Where I was okay. But
it's funny because I get, people talk about wanting to get into the industry, and I'm like,
be careful.
Okay. It's great when you're young. The problem is about the time you have enough experience and expertise to become a manager or a technician, like a lead tech or something. That's about the time you want to start having a family and planting some roots.
Absolutely.
And the two are not
they
co-inhabitable.
They do, you can't do them both right.
No.
Something's got to give. It's funny, Shane Nally, great friend, but he always says, he goes, yeah, people say, man, I want to get in the industry. It's like, well, you get a lot of free T-shirts.
My closet full of
free T-shirts. Yeah. So, but
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to poop on the sport. I love it with all my heart and soul, like I know you do. But it's got an ugly side.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to a point. I don't know where you sit with it, but I don't really enjoy being at the races anymore.
No.
Like the scene, I am
too.
completely I don't want to be any part of it. I love watching the racing.
Me too.
I love the sport itself, the athletes. But the scene,
We did the Ricky's tours, those first 2 ones in January, and halfway through A1, I'm calling my wife. I'm going, yep, I don't miss this one.
Yeah, I made the right choice.
Not one bit.
All right. Well, we have kind of one last segment here, and then a last question. So this is our Ethica Choney check. We don't have any drawers here to give you, but we got a hat and some socks.
Beautiful.
From our partner Ethica. This might be more of for your kid, but it's
very
pretty cool. He'll dig that hat, I'm sure.
Very cool.
And then we've got a Whiskey Throttle T-shirt
Right
we give to
on.
all our guests. So
Wear that proudly.
we sure appreciate your time. And our last question we ask everybody is how you want to be remembered in the sport.
Geez, I never think of myself that way, to tell you the truth. It's more like I was just a kid, that kid in the field that grew up racing or grew up riding. And racing is something I kind of stumbled into. I never really planned a career like it did, but I guess that I was fair, with the guys I worked with. I was able to work with a huge, broad group of guys, just great guys, and that I was just a good, fair boss to them. I think.
Yeah.
It's the victories and losses. I don't know that's part of it. That wasn't the driving force. A lot of it was just working with great people, making a program successful, taking a program from this and building it to that. I think that was more enjoyable and fulfilling.
Sure.
In the long run. So.
Yeah, and all the people you meet along the way too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Some of my best memories are, like I said, being in the trailer with Wardy.
Right.
Or, the games we used to play at the TLD team there, or traveling to the races with teammates. You know, like you just have these core memories.
Yeah.
That.
And like you said, the sport's brutal, and it's got a negative side, but it's got a beautiful side too.
Oh, for sure.
One that I don't know if you can emulate it in any other facet of life, but it's pretty special.
No, imagine having an office job. You think you'd have those kind of memories?
Yeah, there's no way.
Not nearly the highs, probably not the lows either, but
very mundane. Middle. Yeah.
I don't think that's what we're built for.
No, not at all.
Well, man, you have your fingerprints all over so many championships in off-road and a ton of race wins in Supercross and Motocross with, one of the best to ever do it. And your family name, I would say, is synonymous with motorcycles. That's pretty damn cool, man. A lot to be proud of. So
Thanks. I appreciate
I'm really
that.
proud to know you,
Yeah,
and I
thank you,
appreciate you
David.
taking the time to come on,
I had a
man.
great time. Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed that with Mike Webb. Stick around. We'll be back to close out the show. All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another show here, and want to thank Mike a ton for coming in. As we kind of talked about in the show, he and his brother have been instrumental in a lot of things in this sport, from the off-road world, particularly with his brother, and Mike obviously having a big handprint there on the Team Suzuki stuff during a really unique era where Suzuki kind of was falling from grace, but still having one of the most mercurial stars our sport's ever seen. So some great stories. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, support our sponsors, the folks that continue to bring you this show. If you have a need for a dirt bike, look at Yamaha. If you need parts and pieces, gear, go to motorsport.com, buy Troy Lee Design stuff, buy Dunlop, Rockwell. All of these guys really bring this show to you week after week. So we appreciate it. Lots more coming, some really cool stuff coming up. So stick around, and thanks for watching.